Yes.
Recording on?
Okay.
Okay, welcome everybody to Town Board Work Session, Tuesday, August 2019. We start off with our SAM grant, discussion of additional funding for existing and new projects. So we recently advised that we're getting a $250,000 grant from Senator Harcum. And here we're gonna talk about how we're going to spend the money, maximize the funds, any way you wanna look at it.
Okay,
We
so,
invited the rec commission here, so they can tell us their priorities. And we have Rob Deary here, our comptroller.
just to start with, this is, I spoke to Barton and Judas, Lee today and asked her if she could, Rob Deary, myself, Bob Seoli, had a meeting with our engineers on the basketball and playground after that. And asked them if they could take, in light of our last bid, if they could take and rework the numbers a little bit, we try to pare down the contract and just basically try to figure out ways that we could be a little bit more cost effective in our bidding going forward.
But if I'm not mistaken, specifically, there was a conversation that the reason why we only got one response on the RFP, which is reflective of the fact that a lot of these contractors did not wanna do the work in the summer because they have other jobs that need to be completed by the end of this, by the beginning of the school year, so before school starts. So again, only one, which is would be somewhat awkward on a reasonable job, you would expect to have more than one. And number two, the price likely was higher than what we should expect, and therefore we should do it again now. So why are we even paring back now? We can pare back later. Why don't we make the
Well, because unlike this bid, the infrastructure bid, where it was New York State, based upon New York State DOT bid where it's itemized, Barton and Judas actually recommended to us that we do a lump sum bid. So we wouldn't have the option of pulling out items from the contract afterwards.
Is that what we did the first time?
And they suggested it again, that we do it, we changed certain specs. We changed certain specs for the blacktop, the asphalt. We cut back,
They went to the tiles instead of
yeah, they went to the
board
titles
place.
instead of the port in place. There were a couple of things that we did to adjust the pricing.
Why, I'm just surprised, why now? It seems just, why now are they saying this when this wasn't a conversation afterwards?
It was a
That
conversation
was
that we had.
never shared with us, the town board, and me, when I've been intimately involved with you and them, so why now are they, because the specific conversation was, it's the timing is why it's too high.
They felt,
Nobody said at the time, I'm sorry, no one said at the time, we should pare back.
after the bids, when the bids went out initially, they had recommended against us putting in line items for paving and things like that. We felt most comfortable with it because this is the way we've been doing it with this bid, and we have in fact pulled things back. We've had cost item overruns, we pulled things out that we thought were way out of line, things like the street furniture. So when the bid came back, only one bid and significantly higher than what the construction estimate was, they asked us to reconsider the line items and go back to the total lump sum bidding.
So then I'm gonna say then why did they just, Barton and Judas do such a poor job in giving us an idea of what this would cost? I mean, something's amiss here. They did a real sloppy, poor
Well,
job
we
in
only had
identifying
one,
costs.
well, we only had one bid,
In
and I'm not,
fairness, what it means is the contractors are so busy
Right,
that we
which
only had one
is,
bid and the
It was very
guy,
high.
and the
Which we
guy
expected,
wants to charge
correct.
enough money because it's a non-competitive bid, so
right, because
the
that's
timing
the time of
is.
the, right, the time, so that makes sense, that's why we bid now. But if it's otherwise, they want us to pull things out, then they really
there
dropped the ball.
weren't major things, they were talking about
They changed the depth of the asphalt
Asphalt.
by 1.5 inches or something. Jerry had asked for it and
What was the savings for that?
The savings for the asphalt, it was originally bid as 6-inch base, 4-inch binder, and then 2-inch top. It went down to 6-inch base with fabric, 2.5 binder, and 1.5 top. They thought it would be a savings of between $50,000 and $60,000. On the curbs, the actual concrete curbs in front of the parking spots, we had bid it with rebar in it, which is the steel
Right.
bars that go through it. They suggested that we didn't really need the bars, that was a savings of between $10,000 and $12,000. With playground equipment, they suggested that we go with tile versus pour in place for a savings of $50,000.
These are good, this is value engineering, none of these are unreasonable
Yeah,
recommendations.
so it wasn't, it wasn't that we were pulling out, we were just paring back in
So
certain
why-
They
areas.
didn't change the footprint or anything like
But
that.
my other
Nothing.
question is, I know what I know, I always like to say, if you get indicted, I can help you. I hope you don't get indicted.
Thank you, I
But
appreciate that.
but what does that mean to pare down the depth of the concrete or the asphalt part of it?
So-
That means nothing to me, so I may save money, but it may be long term,
Right,
hold as long.
so Jerry would prefer it to be a street quality paving job in our parking lot. But the reality is that our parking lot doesn't necessarily
Same wear and
get
tear.
the same wear and tear as a, South Greeley Avenue.
And what's the standard? And
There,
is it
Bob
normally-
Cioli felt that this was sufficient and we have done this before in parking lots. It's what we do out in our back parking lot, it's not at all unreasonable.
Can I just ask you a question? I know that we've been repaving the parking lot sort of in bits and pieces.
Yes.
Would any of this project come under a normally scheduled repaving work?
No, only because the monies that have been earmarked for the commuter parking lot are from an assessment that we have put upon
Right.
permits. And because that is the permit lot and you've got people that are here from that are using our commuter parking lot, they're paying for parking permits, we're taking that $50 assessment that's going to fund it. So it's a
So I
separate
understand they're
monetary
different
resource.
pools, but I
Right.
mean, the back parking lot needs paving, so.
Well, the back, I mean, could we piggyback it onto one of
Piggyback it,
our
yeah.
projects and just pull it out altogether? Yeah, but
I mean, it's
mean,
a significant amount of money.
it's a huge amount of money, but we still have to pay for it.
But
one way or
the
other.
thing is, if we were gonna do it anyways,
Yeah, we still have the parking lot to do, we still have two
Right.
more sections of the parking lot to do.
Right,
It's
so
not
why-
like
I mean, I'm
we
just
have
saying
extra
it's
funds
it's
that
a
are
matter
lying
of,
around.
how you do it, I mean, it's like it basically means that we ourselves, if we're gonna do it anyways, what we're doing is,
Right, so the only thing is that the parking lot paving is coming out of earmark funds from the commuters. If we were to pave this, it would be out of general paving funds, which means that we wouldn't be paving, streets instead. Or that would be money that we would be taking away from our general paving.
when was this
We-
parking lot due to be paved again?
This parking lot,
well, the back parking lot's bad.
well, the back parking lot's bad.
I mean, it's due.
Well, right, it's because it gets obliterated,
So
so
I
it's
mean,
there now, so it has to be done.
it kinda does,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
How is it
saying.
gonna stay the way it is?
Right.
It's, I mean, it's
It
bumpy.
it's sort of, yeah, and
We could take a tour and go see now, but I'm fairly certain.
no, we don't really need to. Your point is well taken, I don't think anybody's, yeah,
I'm
no, no,
sorry,
no.
it's like nobody finishes a sentence, like, can we just?
No, what we're saying is a large chunk of this bid is work that was originally budgeted to be done as part of the
The downtown infrastructure project.
and downtown infrastructure, and also we increased the fees for parking because we knew we would have to pay to fix that parking lot because it's been degraded.
Not this,
No,
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 no, not the town hall parking lot.
No, no,
Just
I'm
the
talking
commuter parking lot.
Commuter
Confusing the
parking lot.
lot.
And so some of this money is actually
None of that,
No,
none of the parking
we can't
fee
touch
money
the
goes
commuter
to that.
parking
It's
lot.
different.
We can't touch the commuter parking lot money, that's for the commuter parking lot, it's designated for
So,
that.
but if we were
Can't touch
planning
it.
on doing this anyways, I'm just saying, it just sort of feels like, I mean, Rob's the accountant, so I defer to him, but it sort of feels like it's coming in, the cost is coming in two locations.
Right,
So the question is, should we split it between the two of them?
You can't
What?
use the
What are we
commuter
talking
parking lot
about?
money.
No, because we have to fix it anyways after we finish the infrastructure project.
And ELQ is gonna be restoring some of it because they
right,
destroyed it.
he was restoring some of it, so it may be piggybacked onto, there may be some funds coming out of the infrastructure project, but it wouldn't be
Full.
it would not be
Okay.
the commuter parking lot monies.
I mean, I'd be interested what Rob, I'm sorry, I'm sinking, this is driving me nuts.
That's
Yeah,
why he's here.
Yeah, but I'm also not quite sure I understand.
I'm sorry, what is the bottom line on this? You had a meeting today and you went through and you talked about the different line items that could be swapped out in sort of a value engineering style to get to a different bottom line potential cost that we might expect to anticipate to see in the responses that we've received to the RFP. Right. How did that, I'm less familiar than Jeremy and Rob certainly with this project, how did that conversation, how did this change? So how does the total of
The
1.2, call it 1.2? Well,
It's only a 5% contingency.
right, it's only 5% contingency, but there's future
Yeah.
electrical that we are gonna have to address. It doesn't necessarily come as part of this project. The drainage has to do with the front parking lot, which we're hoping ELQ would do, but this is our worst case scenario.
so what, I'm sorry, you refresh my memory, what did we receive in terms of the bid response that we decided not to go with, and how does this,
Landy's bid for
It was
this,
about 1.2,
yeah,
I
1.2
believe.
was
okay,
Landy's.
so we went out and we had a conversation about how to cut scope, and we got back to 1.2 again?
No, because
I'd have to go back and look, because there were different alternates
There
that
were-
were in
yeah.
that Landy bid, and they also proposed changing that. They didn't want us to go with alternate, there was the drainage pipe, and there was about 3 items that they wanted to charge. That in the original bid specs were item costs, and they wanted to include it in the lump sum.
right, and they thought we would do better. So it's hard to take a look at the Landy bid.
Maybe we need the Landy bid, at least if not, I don't need all the stuff,
Yeah, I
but it's site improvements, basketball court, landscaping, drainage, playground, front parking lot.
Right, I think
And future electrical could just be lump sum with a straight comparison, so that we can understand where the value engineering showed up. And with just a line item,
Does this include any of the electrical?
No,
And again,
but-
Ivy,
Well, we're reissuing it though.
Ivy, this number that we're seeing is based on a summer number when we assume that there's less contractors bidding and expect it to be higher.
Is that right, or is
That's
this
what we were
new
told.
number reflective of this conversation that you had today, and thus what we would expect to see in the
It
responses?
it's going to be a
our-
combination of both. So it was going down and taking and paring down as best we could without changing. We have a base project. We know what we want in the inclusive playground, we know the equipment we want, we understand we either want pour in place or tile. We didn't wanna go to the what would you call it, it's a mulch, but it's that plastic
Yeah,
mulch, it's
it's
that,
Right.
we didn't wanna,
Yeah.
we didn't wanna go to that. We need to do the basketball court, we were putting in the conduits for the electric lights, but we weren't including the lights, figuring that that was a $70,000 expenditure that we could hold off for another year, that would make it a little bit easier to pay for. So we continued to present in the RFP a base bid of phase 1, which would include the site improvements for the basketball court, the site improvements for the playground. Okay, and that's what's phase 1 in the top. If that's where we are right now, and this is with just a 5% contingency, and I highlighted it for the board because we would go for a 10% at the very minimum, 5% is really overly optimistic. If Bob Seoli was sitting here, he would go 15 to 25%
wait now.
contingency. Yeah. And I hate to tell you, after our experience, he wouldn't be wrong.
Yeah.
But our point was is that we're at 722. We have secured thus far.
772.
Oh, I'm sorry, 772, yeah, wishful thinking on my part. We have secured thus far $325,000.
Here's,
Please.
I don't know if you wanted me to
Yeah,
hand that
yeah.
out or when, if you wanna pass it
Yeah.
that way.
You should give that to the rec guys too,
Oh,
or Commissioner
you
Newman
wanted
as
me?
well.
No, sure.
Yeah,
I don't have enough for every, I didn't
we can
realize
share,
they were
it's
all
alright, don't
gonna
worry.
that's okay, here, give me a couple.
We should have 675.
They just really need the top, they don't need the rest of the, that has to do with the capital.
Well, we borrowed
project.
$282,000.
We borrowed, I thought, 150 for the playground and 200 for the basketball court.
So we borrowed
No, no, no,
a
that's
total
grants.
of 259,000.
Just
Two
for
fifty,
phase
two
one.
It's
59,
325.
and then we have 325 in
There were
grants.
alternatives as well, but it was 1.5.
For
Did you-
phase one, yeah.
684.
It was- This land is what you should have.
325?
No,
Yes,
Oh.
sorry.
No,
Engineering, and what's
the
the
engineering estimate?
Engineer,
that's
well,
for Barton and LaJudas.
Barton,
We've
So-
already paid that.
but we still,
Well,
it's still against the
we
price.
paid some of it, but it's still part of the capital project, we still have to.
Wait a minute, we're paying them
So
an
we're-
incremental, or is this 100,000 including the design work they did so far?
It's including what they've done so
And how
far.
much have they done so far?
I don't know that.
What percentage of construction drawings would you say they're at?
Complete, construction, complete.
The
They're
construction drawings are complete.
So
I
what
don't
would
think
be,
that we've paid out, I know that we haven't paid out all that money,
Money.
but-
approximately half.
we paid them half, but
Yep.
their original bid was,
I think maybe 50 was the original bid on the engineering.
On the
side?
engineering, I
So
don't.
where'd the half come from?
With what? Because that's what they built us so far.
No, but what fund, like where'd it come from? Did it come from this, the 584? When you say you paid half of their fee already?
Yeah, we already have the capital project set up, we've already borrowed $250,000
Right, so I'm saying it
towards
came
the
from,
project.
right, so it came from that, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking. right?
Yes,
Yep.
they came from the money we borrowed.
The bond funds.
So we don't have 584 left, we have 534 left.
this is what,
Yeah, I mean,
He's so
I
good.
look
Yeah.
at the overall
God, I
project,
love
Right,
this
I
man.
understand.
what we paid so far, to me, doesn't really matter, I mean, I need to know the bottom line, what's the total
Right,
cost of the project?
you'll never know the bottom line right now because we are basing our bid on a return from one vendor during the summer at a peak maximum value. So we may in fact have a bid that comes in more reasonable as they expected the first time around.
Okay, so let's, for argument's sake, let's take their number.
Right.
So if we take their number, the point of this exercise was not really to get into the weeds, the point of the exercise was to try to give the board an idea of what our consultant believes the cost is going to be of the project, what we have borrowed so far, what grants are, and where our shortfall is. Just so that the board understood where this project stood as far as funding.
okay.
So we had expected then for the bid response that we received when we bid this in the late spring to be 584,000,
That's what, no,
and instead it came
So
in at
that
1.2
project changed
million?
significantly, so back when we borrowed money in February of 2018, that was my anticipation at that point of what the project was going to be. It became
Based on what was
based on whatever projection I had from them at the time,
them being
Barton and LaJudas.
that was before we met with a playground company to tell them to pick out the specs of what we wanted.
We just hired these guys to do the check line.
But
No, but it was our selection of the playground. It was our selection of making it an inclusive playground. There are cheaper options for us to take for the,
That was
for
the
the
estimate
base.
before we met with them also. Listen, the bottom line is, this is what it costs, we had the rec commission here, we're gonna talk about the money that we have available, the $250,000 grant, the grants that we already have, the bonding that we already have. We're gonna talk about projects in Millwood, and we're gonna figure out our priorities.
And we're gonna-
If we wanna do this basketball, an inclusive playground, which I know we've been talking about for a long time, the rec commission's been talking about a basketball court for 20 years, then now's the time to do it, we either do it or we don't do it. But
I
we
know
need
what
to,
it-
we need to move on and start talking about this big picture, because we have funds. We have $250 coming from Senator Harcum. We do have money, the 1.5, which is no longer 1.5, but it's pretty damn close to it. And we could go at the bond, right? We have a cell tower, I don't know why that's funny, but we have a cell tower that's coming in Millwood. That's gonna generate initially $3,000 a month and probably up to $5,000 once we get 4 providers on it. And we already said we're using that money from Millwood, and Rob Deary will tell you that if we borrow $1 million, if we bond $1 million, it's gonna cost about $65,000 a year to pay that off in interest and principal, and we
Why
will
would
have
we
that
bond it? Why would
covered,
we
we will
bond
have that
$1 million?
covered.
we wouldn't need $1 million.
Because the reason we bond $1 million is because we have the capital, because first of all, money is very cheap right now, and we have the capital, we're gonna have the income coming from the cell tower, and then we get to spend $1 million on Millwood Park and do everything we wanna do, right? We could put lights around the baseball field, softball field, we could put lights around the tennis court, we'd actually do a tennis court surface that people would use. we could actually
Well, and
increase
that's what,
the parking, we
let's also say
make it
before we
ADA
run away, I think
compliant.
Ivan and I spent some time on that, and that was one of the items that we came up with was redoing the Millwood playground, Millwood Park, pardon me, resurfacing the tennis courts, fixing up the baseball field, potentially putting lights there. So yes, that, you're 100%, that's what we addressed before we learned it, right.
Yeah, those are all,
That's what we
good
addressed
things that
Senator
Millwood
Harkin.
needs.
Right.
They will need. And by the way, when you talk about the surface, doing another concrete surface doesn't really make sense. Anybody who plays tennis doesn't like playing on concrete.
So that goes without saying. My thought is, and we'll step away from the dollars for a second. My thought is, I don't have any doubt, and you guys can chime in momentarily, that we'll get this done. The basketball court and the playground. When we throw out a number like $1 million and it's bonded, we pay $65,000 a year, that wouldn't be for that, that would be for many other things, even if it came into this, at this high number.
No, it'd be for the Millwood stuff.
So it'd be a lot of things if
It
we did
wouldn't
that.
be for this, it would be for Millwood.
If we did that. We have fortunately our good friends at Summit Greenfield who have some dollars that they sent our way, to revitalize the hamlet. So I will kick it over to our good friends in the Rec Commission and ask them what their thoughts are. I know some of them, there's Amsterdam was one of your thoughts, but Millwood Park was something you were very much interested in, and obviously this as well. So I kick it to you, to sort of, you wanna chime in about your views on some of the things that you have heard about and suggested. I'm not putting you on the spot, I didn't mean to do that.
Well, they're here.
We're here to be put on the spot.
We weren't asking him
If
about.
you called me while I was at dinner, I would have had a different reaction. No, that's, so I think the priorities of the commission are, as you stated, Jeremy, to start with at the top, and Rob, as you alluded to as well. Basketball court's been, to say it's at the top of the list, I mean, it's past the top, it's been on the top for 20 years, it's now like aged wine, it feels like it's.
Except it hasn't gotten any better.
Hasn't gotten any better.
Well, now you can use it for pickleball, so technically got a little bit.
Well, maybe.
It also hasn't depreciated yet, because we haven't built it.
Yeah, it's in perfect condition too.
So, it's exactly right, so I think that remains very clear, number one, and we do think that doing that in the playground together, and anything other than that seems penny wise and pound foolish. Frankly, I think from the commission's point of view, what our vantage point was like, we'd all agreed to do this, we'd gotten some funding from the state, which was fantastic, and at least it was our perception, which comes back to the 550-ish, 580-ish number to where it is today, like, we thought we'd agreed to it, and it just became an issue of, well, while we're doing it, we're gonna do other stuff, but pretty much all the other stuff, for the most part, has been, like, you guys' purview, because it's dealing with the parking lot, it's dealing with other things that, again, like, while we're at it. So we kind of moved on from that to some extent and thought, all right, so it's not in the rearview mirror, but it's as close to that. As you alluded to, Jeremy, we'd started to look forward, we'd started to talk about Amsterdam probably being the next place you'd start to hear from us on. But what I also would add to that is we don't have a plan. So when money comes in from Senator Harkin, we don't have a plan to offer you. But what we can recognize is the fact that Millwood Park as well, especially as it represents an important part of that hamlet, is an area in need of attention. It's the first thing that needs to be said about that park is that when we're gonna do something about it, we have to keep an eye on the fact that we actually can't even use the facilities that are there today to full effect because the parking problem is pretty substantial. So we're not gonna go blasting out rock and building a bigger parking lot, but that needs to be part of the conversation. And then lastly, improving the facilities with whatever money we can, I think is clearly something the commission has a strong interest in. And frankly, we're open to whatever combination of the fields and the tennis courts and the playground, we think is a balanced approach. I don't think we come to this, speak for you guys at my risk, that any one of those things is a bigger priority for us than the other.
You could do it all. Can you do it all?
We would love to do it all, but I think in terms of just,
How would, can I just ask you a
Yeah,
question?
please.
The fields do need some TLC, there's no
Sure,
two ways about it. And the parking is a problem. It's mobbed all the time, that is a heavily used park.
there's just not enough spots.
There's just not enough spots.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You actually, forget about, you can't play a baseball game there without people needing to park across the street today.
Right. Right,
But
I
the
know
real
that,
problem is
but
when the two games, one's
Well,
coming, one's
it's
The
the switch over
transition
when you
is
have
a real
multiple
problem.
game timing.
Yep.
it's dangerous actually.
Yep.
So my question is,
Ballet.
but in terms of the lights at night,
Yeah.
with that, for the baseball fields, not the soccer fields, cause I didn't see that here, are we talking about lights on the soccer fields?
There's no
Both?
soccer fields in
No.
Millwood Park.
Oh.
Amsterdam.
Oh, we're not talking about Getty, you're talking about the one over by Rockies?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the notion, well, certainly I think that was part of the application to Senator Harkin's office, was that we, wanted that to be where the money went. So that's the royal we.
Now, the fields at Millwood, I mean, they're okay, but they could use a little TLC as well.
Yeah, and I think the point being that
I mean, no
Every,
offense.
every one of our fields could use.
Yeah, we're not gonna we're not gonna turn away money for any of these fields, they all need it, and frankly, lights could go in a lot of different places, and we have a major capacity issue, so anywhere we can stick lights and run more programming would be fantastic.
That's my question.
The benefit to doing it in Millwood is it's obviously a hamlet, it's the hamlet that's not getting any attention right now, on a relative basis.
Yes, I understand.
And so it's a walkable, park that could really, benefit from. And I think the downside to over focusing on Gedney is everyone uses Gedney. Everyone's already using Gedney. Gedney could use a breather, so
Well,
let's
to
create some
add, I'm
space.
sorry, to add to that, if you rehabilitate, now I'm talking Millwood versus Gedney, if you can rehabilitate Millwood, it would get more use year round.
Yeah.
Gedney will not get use year round because that pathway to the back has been traditionally
point.
closed. And it's obviously dangerous at night, but it's also not easy to get back there at night. So you're cutting off, putting lights back there when you can't get back there.
I understand.
Is not optimal, so that's why, to me, that's why Mike was just drawing a soccer field in the outfield.
You can put a soccer field there so you can play at night, the rec football that used to go in here.
Where?
In
In
the
the
outfield.
outfield
of Millwood.
Of Millwood, you can line it, much like they line the rec
Right.
field for football, you can line the outfield and it takes pressure off of the rec field
I know.
for,
Oh,
you know,
I
for
didn't know
you.
you could do
And
that.
it provides easier
Yeah.
access for people on the west side.
Yeah.
Yes.
Certainly.
Sure.
Instead of have to schlep
Well,
across.
and adding
Well-
lights goes up and down regardless of the sport.
People from the east
You
side
can-
go to the west side
you-
to play their
I'm-
sports.
Hang on, let him finish.
Yeah.
Right, but adding lights goes, it doesn't matter what sport.
Sure.
It allows you to increase capacity.
Right.
For the youngest to the oldest. And I mean, that's a bar none.
So
that-
if you had to make an investment in the fields, your preference would be the Rockies Park.
Millwood
Millwood Park.
Millwood Park.
And
If you're
Yes.
talking about something like
Versus
lights
Gedney.
versus.
Yes.
Right.
I think Gedney is like building a new airport. You've got a lot of potential there. It's not, $500,000, $250,000 is a drop in the bucket to what you could do. And that's a master plan discussion that
Fair enough.
we're working on. You can do a lot with Millwood and maybe even Amsterdam right here and have a huge impact for all sports immediately.
And Gedney also, I think you'd run into more opposition with lights and stuff.
Yes.
I
That's the
think
nice
it's
thing
just
about
stepping into a
Millwood
whole.
Park, is that you're not gonna bother any neighbors, and I think that that's a huge
Millwood?
thing.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing goes up against a rock.
People up the hill, the
Pheasant
Pheasant
Run.
Run.
Pheasant Run, I would assume would want at least more activity, they could walk right there.
but they may not want lights.
But those lights
But
usually.
they do lights to go down.
People don't understand that, you've
I
been
don't
there
know.
for years,
I don't
where
think they're
the
big
lights are so
lights.
focused these days that they,
Yeah.
there's no bleed, or not
Certainly
significant
would
bleed, there
be-
You
used to be.
can't put lights on a field without making someone upset.
Right.
You just can't. But we put the fields where we put them and we're not moving the fields. And instead of having to build more fields to create capacity, putting lights on them is the better
We
cost
nominate
benefit.
you to tell them.
Well, I think that
I've
obviously,
had to, right?
And,
former resident of Pheasant Run.
right, exactly.
The other suggestion, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
the other thought would be too, just as a temporary solution, you have two tennis courts there. If you're lighting the tennis courts, what's to say come October 1st, you now just get two basketball nets and throw them up, and you
Yeah.
take big thick foam over the two, things that hold the nets, and now you've got a basketball
Absolutely.
court for now that people could use at night, and it kinda kills two birds with one stone, although
Well,
when
you
I
could
looked
do that
at,
with the Harp Club. but
when
you
I
could do
looked
that
at
with
your thing here, the guy's charging you $10,000 a basketball pole.
No, I was an estimate, that's always charging, you're
Okay.
not getting a line item bid, but in terms of estimation, I would love to be a basketball hoop installer and
Yes.
get 10 grand.
This is awfully high.
got one installed today, it was not 10,000.
Yeah, I think this is awfully.
Well,
It's really nice,
But
too.
but just like, going back to
I can't
the,
imagine it's a real number.
if you have $1 million,
Yeah.
if you have $1 million, we could do, and we being
Us.
us, you can fix Millwood, make it state of the art, and you can fix Amsterdam. At least the fields there were, during soccer season, you have games canceled on sunny days because the field is torn up, and which is,
And Amsterdam could also be
What do you
over
want
your
to do
camp.
in Amsterdam? Just resurface the fields?
I mean, I would want, I would want, but
Like,
turf down there, but you need, and if you can't do turf, then there needs to be professional, not just my backyard grass.
You can't do turf even with $1 million.
By the way, it's
No.
not just the fields. I mean, this is a big wish list, and the
Right.
reason I opened that box was to tell you we're thinking about it, but we'll close the box because we don't have a plan in the box.
You can do everything with money left over in Millwood. You can play both,
But not turf.
you can put a basketball court in the winter, you can,
I think the point you're making is a really important one, which is that for these other places, we need more thought because a lot could be done, and we wouldn't wanna just go renovating what's already there. Millwood's not getting any bigger, it's not changing what's there. The nice thing about improving Millwood is it will have an immediate impact, as we've been talking about, but we can't possibly do anything else differently there.
Let me suggest this, and I've suggested before, but if we take the $250,000 from Senator Harkam, you put 125 towards the basketball court inclusive playground, you take the other 125, you go out to bond, okay, now, we're not gonna get $5,000 a month from the cell towers right away, because that's when you have 4 providers on it. First, we're gonna start off with 1, and then it's gonna be 2, then it's gonna be 3, we're eventually gonna get to $5,000, I think it's like 3 or 4 years, they say. So the first couple of years, when we're not at the 5,000 yet, we can use the 125 to pay off the bond. Just the same way we use reserve fund to pay off the bond for this. Would that cover it, you think, if you're $65,000 a year to pay off the bond?
Or alternatively, thinking it through rationally, if, after speaking with, been in communication with Senator Harkam just today and a couple days ago, Ivy as well, he very much agrees and sees that Millwood is a priority to this community. And is in full support of Millwood. If we took, I don't think this bid is gonna be that high, and I don't need to necessarily be numbers guys, but as you just noted, $10,000 seems awfully high for a poll, and whatever the number ultimately comes out to be, if we have a shortfall, we also have, again, fortunate to our good friends at Summit Greenfield, dollars left over to revitalize the hamlet of Chappaqua, among other things, and recreational opportunities. We can use the dollars to make sure that we have enough to fix the field, meaning the baseball field, make it available for soccer, make it available potentially for lights on the tennis court, resurface the tennis courts. You can, and then redo that playground. You will change, as you noted before, the dynamic of that entire area. And we have the benefit, fortunately, of that the money's coming from the cell phone tower. And we have, as you noted before, Amsterdam Park, you have to figure out what you want to do. So there's no rush to spend money for the sake of spending money.
Right.
All this can be covered and be done, and if we have to bond, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another, where you bond here or there.
What's the benefit of doing that though? And by the way,
What the benefit-
the chaplain committee's not here, but if they were here, they would say, wait a second, we just paid $90,000 for a feasibility study, it actually came in at a number that's probably gonna be somewhat feasible. It's probably the best thing we could do to revitalize downtown Chappaqua, and that money, whether, actually Dave Foster's here, that money, whether you guys want to accept it or not, although it's all documented in emails and flow charts, was actually dedicated for the chap line. So rather than spend the chap line money on this, I don't understand what's the downside of what I'm suggesting.
So let me respond is, last I checked, I didn't see us promise $1 million to the chap line, to the committee.
No, we didn't promise it, but they're actually working on it, thinking that's gonna become a reality.
But yes, you're correct, but is there anything preventing us, if we're bonding from place 1 and bonding from place 2, in the end, it does not make a difference
It does
where
make
we
a
bond.
difference
does
because,
make a
because
difference.
the cell tower
money,
revenue
exactly.
is supposed to be going towards
Correct, and
Millwood,
there's
and
plenty
that would
of work,
finance
correct,
the
and there's-
bond.
And
So
there's
we
gonna
could
be
plenty
like
of work, we could get money.
$2,000 a month for the first 2 years?
There's-
I mean, that's
there's-
like
Well,
a
it's
couple
not-
of hanging
and it's-
baskets.
and it's-
$1 million bond?
That's probably between $65,000 and $70,000, depending on what the rate is and the length of,
So,
Wait, when you say 65, 70, how many years is that?
That's a 30-year
Yeah.
bond.
And the lease
And I
for the
don't know
cell
if it-
tower is 30 years, and by the way, we're gonna get four providers very quick, cause nobody has service in Millwood. They all wanna be on there, they got 4 people already interested in being on the
So,
tower.
I just looked at the numbers
Those are the
that you
facts,
had
and it's coming in
distributed to
November.
us for the downtown project, the current estimate of the final cost. That was attached at the back of the thing. And so, if I'm reading the numbers correctly, and if you could just help me make sure that I am reading the numbers correctly, because I don't wanna say anything that's inaccurate. I have 2 numbers that I'm looking at. One is the revised budget.
Yep.
And the other is the original budget including contingency, and I'm assuming the revised budget as soon as we use all the contingency.
Sure.
Yes, okay.
We're now talking about the downtown infrastructure.
We're talking about this $1.5 million that's hanging out there that I want to establish that is actually there. So one of the things that I'd like to understand is if I just subtract the two of them
We actually have it in our plans.
from each other, right, we're over by $1.5 million for the project.
1.4 plus at the moment,
Right.
yeah.
So,
So you think we should use that for the?
no, what I'm saying is, in terms of your funding the downtown infrastructure project, the difference between the original estimate and what we think it's gonna end up being is going to be funded how?
Probably either by using fund balance or borrowing additional money, or a combination of both.
A combination of both.
Could be, I mean.
That's fine, I
It's
just,
a board decision, that's why I've also included a chart of the fund balance, where that was projected to be,
Sorry, I'm
not
sorry.
including
As
using
this
any
one?
additional, no, the back page.
While you're looking there, I just wanna, one last thing to respond to Rob. I can't rationally think that if we use 100,000 or 125,000, if it was needed, all of that, it may not be, to fix Millwood Park as we would like to see happen, and it seems they're on board for the same,
But they
that-
also wanna see the basketball.
Yes, but that's not mutually exclusive, the basketball court's happening, the point being that 100, let's say even at worst, if this is accurate, $125,000, is going to stop the chap line from happening, if it's gonna happen, that's not true. So,
it's not
but that's what we're talking about in terms of, this $250,000, SAM grant. So, to assert that this is for the chap line, the chap line's not gonna happen, and we're telling the.
Jeremy, I'm sorry, you're not making any
No, I am
sense to
making
me.
sense,
Well,
there's
because you're trying to-
$125,000.
For some reason, you wanna allocate all 250, money is fungible, but for some reason, you wanna allocate all 250 to Millwood, when actually, I'm coming up with a solution that's $1 million for Millwood, and we get a lot more done. I understand that you won't be able to say that we got a grant from Senator Harkam and we put it all in Millwood and that's great. But what I'm saying is that we can actually spend, and if you wanna say we're spending $15 million here in downtown Chappaqua, going out to bond for $1 million for Millwood seems like a very fair solution, especially when we have the funds to pay off that bond with the cell tower and using part of this funds. It just seems to me that we can do everything that they want in Millwood. We can do the inclusive playground and the basketball court in Chappaqua, and we still have the money for the chap line, which we're doing a feasibility study for.
Again, so the 125,
I think
you're
that's, to me, that sounds a little bit like, promising everything to everybody, but not quite having a financial underpinning.
Well, actually, we have a
No,
control.
everybody gets
sense.
something, but nobody actually gets anything.
Well,
Right,
what-
no,
I don't
it
think-
actually makes
that
sense.
actually, those are words, but here's the thing, we have a comptroller.
They are
because-
words, yes,
because-
they
Because
are.
when you say nobody actually gets anything, we're actually
Nobody
going to
actually-
bond, for the basketball court, the playground. We're ready to go we're going to bid for that, okay? And if we actually do have a shortfall, we could use some of the chap line money. We could go to bond in 2 seconds from Millwood. We're getting the $250 from Harkam. Why is none of this gonna happen?
I just
And the cell tower's going up in November, so why is none of this gonna happen?
You're basically allocating the cell phone tower funds even before they're built, and it's still
Yes.
not enough to pay for the bond. So
But
that's
then
a
we have-
decision,
we have
and it's being
125,000 for this.
allocated, not necessarily, it's for recreation that benefits the whole town, which is a wonderful thing, and I'm all in favor, and it brings traffic to Millwood, and all of that's like a really positive thing. But I think that if we're talking about priorities, which is basketball and the inclusive playground, number one, overripe, major difference, will bring people to the downtown, which we need, It's like we should say, okay, that's our top priority.
Okay, so put all 250 there, but then how are you gonna be able to say, we help Millwood? I mean, that's what some people wanna do.
But then
I understand that, so I'm trying to help them too.
But if what you're
So-
saying is, what I'm saying is, if what you're also asking us is a decision, because I hear what you're saying about the fact that the fields are overused and you need some relief and that the lighting would make a huge difference, like this would make a big difference to the overall recreation department's ability to meet the capacity demands from the community. It's sort of what I'm hearing you say.
would.
That's correct. Just
Then
like money's funding the field.
then the decision to bond it, right, can be a budgetary decision and a top priority, because what I'm hearing you say is you need better tennis and you need better lighting and you need more capacity on the fields that we have. Amsterdam, you have more time to think about it. In theory, we put money against a master plan for the recreation facilities, so I hope that that's moving forward on some level. So I think that, you know, and the $1.5 million for Chapline, which I still think, you know, who knows what's gonna happen.
Right, who knows
We
what's
haven't
gonna
seen the report, we haven't seen the cost, we haven't seen the, you know, the reaction from the community at this point. You know, kind of leave it there, because I would like to really understand from Rob, if what we wanted to try to do is to create a balance that achieves the basketball court, which is a long overdue thing that would benefit everybody. And we wanted to upgrade the fields in Millwood Park, and we wanted to make sure that we can pay for the overruns on the infrastructure project. What are the implications to that, and do that in the context of the budget? I feel that would be the responsible way to look for money, not sort of throw numbers and projects out there, but it would give you guys what you want. I support your top two priorities.
Just,
After you, please.
Well,
I just,
You're afraid of
well, no, you don't expand your house while it's falling apart. The basketball court is an expansion. It's nice to have, we wanna have it. You have a park that is underutilized and it's not reaching its potential and it's falling apart. Versus something that we all want. Everyone wants basketball court, but a basketball court helps 10 people at a time.
Well, and there's
Well,
an inclusive
it's
playground, which is very
Well,
important, and I know
I agree,
Center
but
Arc
there's
is
also,
very
I agree,
involved
but
in that as well.
the question is about the basketball court.
no, but
Well, it's together.
those two projects are
But
together.
then you should pull all the parking and asphalt away and fund the park and the basketball court separate from what it costs to pave a street or a corner or whatever that you.
I was
So
first, I think
that's
that's,
an $80,000, sorry, it's an $84,000 expenditure. Even if we pull that off, we're still short.
What
You're
is?
still, but you're still.
So short.
Okay, $84,000
I mean, if we pull up phase two on this,
Okay.
If I pull out the.
Hala had asked our comptroller a question,
Sorry.
because it's not, no, it's not, it wasn't you. Because the numbers aren't like this. Rob, out of everything you've heard so far here tonight, okay, with knowing that we're getting, and all the priorities that you've heard, okay, we have a basketball court and inclusive playground that is a priority, basketball court being way up there, and we have, everybody has shown a desire to improve the park in Millwood, and we've all listed a whole bunch of things that need to be done, okay? You know the cell tower's coming, we know what the revenue's gonna be, we also know that we have this 250 coming. Is it possible to do all these things?
Before you respond to that question, who has promised all of those Millwood dollars from that cell tower to this particular job at Millwood Park? So
We
in other
did.
words, but,
No, we
well, we did to Millwood.
Yes, we did.
We
We
did
said
to
to Millwood,
Millwood.
generic
What
Millwood.
the North County Trails, a lot of things, so your assumption.
We don't own the
own the North County.
We couldn't even spend it if we wanted.
No, can I show, while we have this little break, can I just show you an idea?
We're not gonna
I had a-
do everything with
I-
250.
No, I understand that, the point
I
I'm
had an
trying to say
idea
is
that I
we-
wanted to
That's
share
what
with you.
everybody's talking about, is
that all right?
he makes the decision about how we
Laura,
use the money.
can you help me get that picture on this?
Lauren.
I said Lauren. It was Lauren?
Lauren.
Well,
So I just
Rob still
wanna-
has not been able to answer that question though.
But I think
Yes,
he's gonna have to
answer
go
please.
back and take a look, what would be the most responsible
Why don't you
way?
let him answer without thinking what he has to do?
You don't need to yell, Rob.
You're telling him what he needs to do.
I'm not, I would like him to give a thoughtful answer, not an off-the-cuff answer.
Well, I would say Rob's idea to fund the park in Millwood is very similar to how we're funding the paving project in the train station. So we're funding that over a period of years. We increase revenue because we increase parking permits. We took we allocated the increase from what we had it at 1 year to the next. That increase has remained, and we're transferring $125,000 a year into that project. I think it's very similar. We have a revenue source that we don't have currently, we're going to have, and we could use that money to pay for the bond. We
We're
don't
locking
know.
up those dollars now for Millwood
For 30 years.
for this particular bond, when there may be other things in Millwood we wanna fix up.
I'm not saying
So-
that,
Again, these are, so as it's laid out to me, that works. Are there other projects? Absolutely. There's other projects all throughout town.
So what's the benefit of you saying, okay, we got $250 money coming from Arkham, okay, and we're gonna spend it all in Millwood. I understand the benefit of actually saying that, but now we're telling them, guys, you got $250 to work with, instead of a solution, we got $1 million to work with, and we get the basketball
But not
court.
mutually
So what's the
exclusive.
benefit of
Confused why
what's the
mutually
benefit
exclusive.
of actually
They're
doing
not
that?
mutually exclusive. You
Because
have-
this is a way to get $1 million.
Rob, you have, Rob Greenstein has identified dollars that Rob Greenstein says, and this isn't only Adam, Lisa, and Rob anymore, there's 5 of us.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, because that changed.
No,
That's
no,
bad
what's,
sound.
what's,
Doesn't matter,
what's,
it's a change, it
what's
doesn't
actually
matter.
changing is
So-
that you're doing this for campaign
so-
purposes.
So it's not,
That's
it's not the
Jeremy,
three of you.
you're doing it for
So
campaign
it
purposes.
doesn't matter, there's no.
And we're trying to help
Why
the
don't we ask
town of
Senator
Newcastle.
Harkam? Have you spoken with Senator Harkam?
Yes.
Yes,
I'm
he's
sorry,
on good.
can I say something? Because I've
We are
been-
not
I've been-
here for your
I've been really
campaign.
quiet and just listening to this, but
Okay,
I do
we're not
wanna-
here for the Newcastle
No, we're
Democratic
definitely not here for
Committee.
Team Newcastle.
Really?
Can I-
We're
can I
trying
say
to improve
something?
Millwood.
Okay, so I'm gonna start.
Should I finish?
I wanna, let me just back up for just a
I
second
mean, it's
here,
ridiculous
because
how
I
obvious
think
you guys
we're-
are being too about it.
I think, excuse me,
that's Rob.
excuse me,
Yes, it
It
is.
is.
wasn't an
election
It's ridiculous how
I'm not
obvious
running.
you guys are being about this.
excuse me.
I'm sorry, I
You
didn't.
know what's ridiculous? Let me, let's just rewind the tape on all of this for just a moment.
Team Newcastle got $250, I mean, the
Excuse
Newcastle
me,
Dems got
excuse
$250
me.
from Millwood, the greatest thing in the
I
world.
really think it would be appropriate to maybe
And we
listen to
passed
what
up an
Ivy is
opportunity for
trying
$1
to
million.
communicate to her
Wow.
colleague.
Wow.
Great minds think alike. Isn't that what you posted on Facebook? Right before the Democratic Committee shared it?
Oh, Jesus Lord.
Is that not what happened on Facebook?
I
We got
committed Facebook
$250, we're putting
suicide,
it
I
to
have no
Millwood,
idea.
you got a picture of the Millwood sign, and you got the Newcastle Democratic Committee sharing it. Is that not what happened?
Someone's angry that they're.
Is that not what happened though?
Someone's a little
True or
angry, someone's a
false?
little upset. I don't know what you're talking about, Rob.
True or
No,
false?
There's
Are
no
we-
conspiracy,
are
bro.
you-
I don't know
are you-
what he's
have you-
upset
are
about,
you
is
done
that
now?
we should be making decisions for the best interest of all of the
That's
residents,
not for a
and
camp,
not based
not for
on
a
an election.
campaign,
Certainly are.
not
Go
for a
ahead.
campaign,
Certainly are, but go ahead.
for the whole town.
What I
Certainly
ran
are.
on, and
Go ahead.
Okay, Ivy,
do the best for the
I would like to
town.
hear what Ivy has to say, and Lisa, you wanted to add something too, right?
Yeah, let's hear to get the best bang for the buck.
You done?
Yep.
Okay, now I just wanna rewind the tape on what's going on here with this particular grant. So just to give a little bit of history and context
Yeah.
to the conversation that we're having today. So, first of all, when Senator Harkam's staff reached out to Jeremy and I weeks
I
ago,
think Newcastle Democratic Committee.
No, what are you talking about?
Continue, I'm sorry, I interjected, my bad.
I would just frankly,
reach out to
My bad, right.
I think this is beyond the pale, this is
That's beyond the pale
absolutely
right now.
inappropriate.
It's inappropriate because I'm telling you exactly the
You're
truth.
not, you are basically shoving your opinion onto the public because you cannot be challenged.
Please stop, go ahead.
Cannot be challenged, I'm
Ivy, go
telling you
ahead.
the
Sorry.
truth.
Ivy, go ahead.
Welcome to the meeting, so glad you're here. Your fifth meeting of the year.
Ivy,
Oh,
please-
I'm not even taking the bait.
Ivy, go ahead.
Let men
Ivy, go ahead.
stew in his own juices.
Ivy, go ahead.
when Senator Harkam's office reached out to Jeremy and I weeks ago about this grant opportunity, first of all, they didn't come to us saying it's $250,000. They came to us saying, what potential projects does the town have for which we might be seeking grant funding? And the first thing that we did after we got this phone call was I picked up the phone and called Jill. And I sat down with Jill. And Jill and I made a list of what are all of the open projects in town.
In Millwood.
For which,
No, Robert.
can I just finish a sentence,
Doesn't work in
please?
narrative, but go ahead.
The
Please?
list I saw was Millwood.
Hold on,
Go ahead.
let's finish the
So, the list that we came up with was all of the open projects for which the town is seeking funding. This included things such as new software for the town's assessor's office. It included security upgrades for Chapac. It included funding the Chapline study. And in fact, it included funding the downtown playground and basketball court.
There were multiple issues on this list. It was not my list, it was not Jeremy's list, it certainly wasn't the Newcastle Democrats' list. These were the issues that we felt like would be most helpful to the town. When we submitted that to Senator Harkin's office, they came back to us and they said, what the senator is interested in funding is something that would pertain to parks and possibly something that would take place in either Millwood or on the west end. So can you guys look into those kinds of projects for us? So then at that time, we had further conversations. We talked about the replica train station on the North County Trailway. We talked about the potential of opening up a pathway from Gedney to Millwood. We talked about the idea of having a concession stand in Gedney Park. And we talked about this idea. This was the idea that they bit on. And then, after they bit on this idea, I then went around, and Jeremy did as well, and had a series of conversations. I wrote up a proposal, I showed it to you. You said, that sounds great. I also had a conversation with the Rec Commission. I had a conversation twice with Ike, who's the one who put together the estimates that made it into the proposal. And I had a conversation with NCBSA, the Newcastle Baseball and Softball Association, because we hoped that they would be A, willing to come on as a partner and potentially be able to kick in some funding towards some of the renovations in the field. So I just want to give a little bit of history of how we got to the place that we got to today, because this is not in any way, and I really bristle, and it makes me frankly furious to hear you claim that this is about my campaign, or that this is about sort of me trying to position what's best for myself, when in fact, this is indeed us trying to do what's helpful to the town and what the state senator wants to fund.
Well, here's
Because
the
at
thing.
the end of the day, he does not have to sign off on
Right.
any one of these particular proposals, and he may, in fact, not want to sign off on an idea to have us purchase a bond.
Okay, well, here's what I followed up with Senator Harkin's office and spoke to his chief of staff, as you know. And he's the one who told me about the 250. And the reason I reached out to him is because I saw in the Examiner that Senator Harkin had actually got grants for 3 inclusive playgrounds, and that was an article in the Examiner. So I reached out to him and said, hey, are you guys aware that we're actually trying to build an inclusive playground here in Newcastle? And the response was, no, we're not aware of that. And I said, yes, we actually are, and we're short money on it, so would it be okay if we use some of the grant money for that? And they said, we really don't care what you use the grant money for, it just has to be in a playground. Which, by the way, was the same exact thing that Senator Murphy's office had told me when I got $250,000 a year ago. Years ago. The same thing, it has to be used in the parks. That's the only thing they told me. It has to be used in a park for recreational activities. They had no idea about our inclusive playground, and they were very receptive to doing it in the inclusive playground.
Of course they're gonna be receptive to doing
So the
it
point
because
is, so
they
what
wanna
they,
do what's best for
what
the
they told,
community,
what
and
they.
the town supervisor turns around and says, suddenly I don't support this idea. Oh, and I never heard of it either.
Well,
Well,
no.
I never heard of it.
Well,
And I said on my emails
Well,
to
I
this
don't know
whole
why
board,
you never heard of it when
because
Bob heard of
you
it,
two
Jill heard
talked
of it,
about
Ike
it
heard of it, the Rec
privately,
Commission heard of it.
because you talked about it privately, and as I sent in emails, I find it very
I find it
disingenuous and not transparent.
disingenuous, that's
That you,
outrageous.
that the
That is-
two of you decided with Senator Harkin what you were doing with the money without talking to the board at all.
And they didn't say it had to be.
I didn't hear about it, I don't know if
My
Paul heard about it.
conversation
I
was.
followed all
none
of
of
the
it.
conversations on
It
email,
wasn't-
and I kept
it wasn't-
quiet because
it wasn't-
everyone was
Everyone's-
going at it, and I
yeah,
didn't need to
right.
join
Yeah,
in.
of course. I heard about it.
The reason I was Ivy, the reason I was okay with it at first in Millwood is because it was relayed to me that the money had to be used in Millwood. And so you were presenting options in Millwood.
At first is that you hadn't thought to yourself, gee, that might be something that would help Ivy's campaign, that's what's come out here
No,
tonight, that's
no,
clear.
it's because
And
I was,
that's not at all
because
what
I
I'm
was
trying to
told,
do.
I was
That's
told by
not the way I
you,
operate.
I
That's
was
maybe
told,
the way that you
I
operate
was
as the
told,
current
I
town
was
supervisor,
told,
but I assure you that
I
going
was
forward, we are
told-
not gonna just
I
position
was-
ourselves
I
based
was
on what's gonna
told-
help us with our campaigns.
I was told that it had to be used in Millwood, and then when I spoke to them, that wasn't the case. What I was told from the source was that it actually could be used in any park, it didn't have to be Millwood. So the question remains, why the push for Millwood? Because what Harkin's office told me is it doesn't have to be in Millwood. So where's the push for Millwood?
All right,
Because it's
that
not from
was-
Harkin's office.
It was indeed the response that they
it
gave
was.
me, was that they would be interested in doing something in Millwood and the West End potentially. And in fact, as I said earlier, I did float with them the idea of putting the bond towards the playground and the basketball court, along with a long
I
list of other
submitted-
projects
remember
that the town came up with, not me.
remember that list that we had about 2 years ago, a year ago, that I got from Mike? That was part of it as well. There was nothing.
There's no
So-
question,
so-
there's stuff to
and
do in
we-
Millwood.
we, you know, and again, we
There's stuff to
we
do with
spoke
Millwood
with the
just
senator,
later.
we spoke
Nobody's saying
with
they
the
would
staff.
start making it now.
No, I'm not saying now. I just wanna go back to
I'm the
my,
one proposing $1 million bond to do
Excuse
everything
me.
in Millwood.
Excuse me, excuse me, Rick.
How is that
I'm
not
sorry.
helping Millwood?
I just
A
wanna
$1 million
actually
bond.
ask you a clarification
I mean,
question, but this man,
I don't
is sitting
understand
right
how
here,
that
is he
can't
still
take it.
here?
I can speak on his behalf.
yeah.
Oh, you can speak on his behalf. I thought, and again, it could be because I misunderstood, you know, the way that it's set up and talking about the overripe wine and all that other kind of stuff. But would you say your number one priority is Millwood Park, or would you say it is the basketball court and the inclusive
Yeah,
playground?
so Mike just appropriately identified, so I think Adam would represent a dissenting member of the commission as to whether or not the basketball court is the most important thing, so if you wanna clarify with him, I think you probably
I
do.
would also-
But what do you, I'm asking you, what is?
As a collective body over the last several years, we as a
It's
commission have
basketball,
been
Millwood
supportive.
Park, Amsterdam?
We don't have a plan for Amsterdam.
Okay,
I brought up
basketball,
Amsterdam
Millwood
to
Park.
indicate to you guys that we are working on
That's
a lot.
fine, I'm happy, so basketball and Millwood Park are the two priorities.
Yes.
That's really clear,
And
really easy.
since I've given the opportunity, I wanted to make a point that I tried to make at the beginning, but may have gotten lost. From our point of view, the town's already committed itself to the appropriate parts of the parks component of this project and funded it. Adding the parking lot and all those other things was a decision in our view that the town board made after we kind of all locked arms and said, we're gonna go do this. Now, money is certainly fungible or whatever, but it does feel like our biggest concern here is that we use this to retroactively fund something we already decided we were gonna fund. So, I mean, if the money is fungible and Senator Harkam is, you know, agreeable to whatever, that's on you guys to clarify. But our concern is we have $250,000 of new money to go to parks. We already funded the park stuff here, and we added some stuff, and someone's got to figure out the financial alchemy
Taking
of how
away
to
some
pay for
stuff,
that.
moving the
So-
lights at this point
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, and I like
Mike,
the
am I
clarity of
understanding-
that approach.
Am I understanding then that
But
you're,
it's not just the basketball court, it's the inclusive playground that's not funded.
am I
The
understanding?
basketball court actually is funded.
I'm saying the original concept that we brought forward and pushed for both the playground and the basketball courts were roughly $600,000 or so, maybe even less than that originally, so
Right, but
once.
it's more.
But he's
reality
including more
It's become more because we've added parking.
No, even if you take out that out.
It's
This is $720,000,
It's close,
right?
right. It's
If we
close,
pull out
it's
the
within the
parking
15%
pieces of this, it's about
contingency.
$100,000.
You need money to do it though, the bottom line is you need money to do it.
No, but I hear you, so I think
But-
that part can be, to me, that part, because it is the Chappaqua Hamlet, that part can be funded in the Chappaqua money, Chappaqua SG money would be appropriately spent against
Yeah,
that
and that's
project.
my point, like, we made the decision as a town to do
It
that,
helps
and we
downtown
just didn't get our act together and do it quickly enough, but if we had, we would have had to fund it out of the general fund or other tax revenues or whatever, and I still think that that's the mindset, like, we should make sure that coming out of this $250,000 grant is $250,000 of net new parks investment.
Gotcha.
Whatever that.
What
Thank
about
you.
that
Thank you for
$1 million
clarifying.
park investment?
We love that, I mean, we're not gonna
But-
turn
but
that
I-
away,
but I
but
think-
that's a town board debate that we're just trying to express the opinion, we don't wanna see this kind of retroactively funding, and if the
Well,
net that comes out of that is $1 million of additional investment, we'll be there all day to talk about
But
it.
why talk about 250 when you're talking about $1 million, that's the part that I don't understand, other than like talking points. If we're talking about all these improvements, I don't understand why everybody in the rec commission wouldn't be
We would love
jumping up and down saying $1 million
Yes,
bond for
we
the parks.
But
definitely
it's
are.
never cheaper to bond.
Besides talking points, I understand the talking points.
That's
they're not
not
mutually
capital.
So why wouldn't we want $1 million for, I mean, John, would you want $1 million to improve Millwood Park? I mean, is that-
You know, find a future
Absolutely not,
flexibility.
because we don't need $1 million at Millwood Park. We need a portion of that. If you have a bank of $1 million, I can tell you a lot of other things we're
You're
gonna do.
right, so what you're
other than
saying
just-
is,
Great, then you can
find a
buy
way to
less.
fund the balance, the differential between the $500 and odd thousand that we have in hand and the $790,000 to finish the inclusive playground and park. Then what you'd like to do is take the $250,000 from Harkin and apply it to the $450,000 that it's gonna cost to fix Millwood Park. That's what I'm hearing.
You know, and
In
I
a
say this way,
simplistic
in a very simplistic fashion, that's exactly what I would say. However, and you know, far be it from me to support Rob on anything, but if there's ways to
Yeah.
But I also don't-
get more money out of this, I would love to see as big a purse as you can, as we can have. And I want done
We
is the
can
basketball
always-
court. What
I
I
don't
want done
think
is,
it's
what I want to do is, you know, we, as Matt said, we don't have a plan for that, 'cause it's just here, this with the money for Millwood Park was new, so absolutely, that would be a big bang for our buck. But we can do, and we do need to do Amsterdam, and we do need to do stuff at Getty. There's never gonna be money that you could show us and we're gonna say, no, thank you.
Can I just say something
Oh,
in
yeah,
response
sorry.
to that, as a taxpayer and someone, you know, needs to watch the tax dollars as they go out and so on and so forth. It feels to me that there are very concrete benefits to the inclusive playground and the basketball court. They're identified, it's real, we've got plans. And there's benefits to the downtown hamlet, there's benefits to the residents from an active lifestyle, there's all sorts of positive things about it.
And the kids
What you're
are using it.
identifying about Millwood Park, which is that we are at overcapacity, and this would actually take some pressure off the Parks Department to deliver the services that the community is demanding. And that's concrete. All the other stuff, going for a brass ring, like throw out tons and tons of money, you know, I kind of feel like you guys don't wanna take on more than you can digest, just doing those two projects alone.
Well, that's why we haven't brought you other plans.
Yeah, so I think that if what we do is we focus on what's concrete and then get that approved and put away, then you guys can start focusing on, let's call it, investment
This-
phase two.
Just, I understand that, these estimates only cover half. So you can't do what we talked
No,
about
we would
doing
have to
here.
bond, we would have to bond,
Okay,
we
so.
would have to bond.
And I mean, go
Or
for
we
2
would have to
million.
dip it, no, excuse me, no, don't get greedy and just go
Well,
for the
no,
money without a
but
plan.
to be
No,
fair,
no,
I
but
think the
I-
I'm
point.
just saying, it's something, don't like pie in the sky,
I
two very concrete
I
plans.
understand why you're
Revenue
acting
stream.
that, but I think Adam is rightfully identifying that what we know from our collective experience is that when we sit down and we work on this, there will be that kind of investment
We hear you.
in the town.
I hear
So,
you.
and the glibness, I understand, is rubbing you the wrong way, but it's just that we know that
No,
that's
it's
coming.
not rubbing me the wrong way. I totally hear you. I agree with you, but I think that what it needs to do is it needs to have the effort of thought and planning
Yeah.
put into it before a proposal is put
We're at
before
the
the
beginning of doing that,
board.
we've been working on getting a master plan
And I
started
think
for
even
the
just
next-
getting these two things approved is huge. Okay, huge.
So,
Millwood Park and doing the inclusive playground and basketball court.
I don't think it's all exclusive from each other though, I mean, yes,
It's not
the downtown is an immediate impact, the basketball court, the all-inclusive park, yeah, look at that, and it's something, you know, we say 20 years, I don't know if it's been quite 20 years, but I said, these guys, it sounds a lot better than 10 plus years, so I'll go with almost 20 years. And it's probably been darn near 20 years.
It's been a
Right,
while. I
it's
have
been-
notes from,
Yeah, so it's probably been darn
It's
near
been
that.
since-
And investment in Millwood Park is gonna have immediate repercussions and views, cause it's right there and everybody sees it and it revitalizes, hopefully, that portion too. But that doesn't belittle what I say, and I'm not being glib when I say we could use the money, cause Amsterdam does need to be refurbished. I mean, I know a lot of money has gone into Getty, but that always needs up, fields need, I mean, my front lawn cost me a hell of a lot
But
of
then
money
it
and I
should-
don't play soccer on it.
But then it should be
But-
part of an overall master plan for the.
we're working on.
We're working on,
Which
so
we're working
I
on.
think that
Absolutely
when you
working on.
get to that point and the overall master plan is done, then I get asking for those funds, and you've made it very clear that upgrades need to be made. But can I just sidetrack for one issue, just to like humor me for one moment?
Sure.
Okay, so, this would also fall under Parks and Recreation in a slightly different way, and it's cheap, so that's the good part, or maybe even cheap, but I wanted to share it with the board because, I somehow have been liberated from some of my preconceived notions. So the replica Millwood train station has always been on my agenda because it had such a psychological impact in Millwood when it was there, it's like you kind of knew where you were when you saw that train station. And Jill's been trying to push that forward, but it's just never, ever, ever gonna happen. So, and they've done all the upgrades, I don't know if you've noticed at the trailhead at the North County Trailway in Millwood, I don't know if you've noticed those upgrades.
well, it could happen because there's upgrades, by the way.
So I said to myself, you know what? Why am I holding on to like this perfect concept? I said, there might be a million different ways to skin this cat. So I asked my husband to help me visualize something that I thought would be low cost, would give a sense of placemaking for Millwood, that would help the businesses by giving, you know, a reason to sort of linger rather than get in your bike, drive your car, go home. And so I just wondered if Lauren could just put it up, because to me, this feels, it's a picnic,
This is at the trailhead?
That's at the trailhead.
You know, originally, when I was on the town board, Mike Kaplitz had a grant to build the entire train station over again, and Bosse's was gonna do it as an actual
Long-
project.
Long gone.
And, I know that.
It's not, guys, it's not long gone.
But anyways, I was just thinking, but I mean, why do we have to replicate this? So this is actually something that's driven off of a train station design. But I thought to myself, you know, it's the kind of thing where people would face the road, it would be relatively inexpensive, you could plant some flowers around it, you can't see it, but you see the patch of ragweed behind there. And it would make it look like this is where you're supposed to go, and that way they could go to the place, come back, sit down, if they're early and their friends haven't been there and they wanna wait for them, they don't have to sit hanging out in the parking lot, you know, with people pulling in and out all the time, pulling down their bicycles, it's safer. So it's just an idea I wanna share with everybody.
Like maybe a silly question, would this be near the, when you say the trailhead, do you mean the one that's across from DeCicco's,
Right after
or do
you
you
go
mean the one
through
that's
the fire department entrance.
past?
We go past the fire department.
No, this is
This is further down Route
Oh,
100.
down around the corner.
No, it's
Oh.
not, this is
like
Station
where
Road.
the little.
Do you know,
Oh,
you go
it
past
is
the
Station
Chico's,
Road.
that, those
Okay.
boulders and that paving and that bike,
This is
It's right by the
exactly,
parking lot.
this is exactly,
it is right in front of
this
the
is
parking lot.
exactly where the replica train station would go. And by the way, Mike, those plans from Bosse's, we recently reached out to Bosse's, they still build it for us. It's just a question of funding.
They
And-
weren't gonna build
and-
it for us.
I thought they were.
No, so they are architectural drawings,
Oh yeah,
they're
they're
not
gonna,
construction
right,
drawings.
they were never gonna build it, they're just gonna do the drawings
Yeah.
first. But here's the thing, the reason why it actually could be a reality is the same exact reason why the Millwood Path was just renovated. It's because for years, the state said they were gonna give the path to Westchester County. Westchester County couldn't go out to bond because their lease was up, they only had a year left on the lease. Nobody's gonna give them a $20 million bond when they have a year left on the lease. They have not been able to do the sale because it requires them to do a survey along the whole lines. So finally, what they did is they extended the lease for another 20 years. That allowed Westchester County to go out and bond, which is why now they're renovating the whole path. And this is also why we could build, that requires the same exact approval as a replica train station, because that's on the county trailway.
That's on
It
town
just,
property.
it's just a
No.
question, it's not,
I thought it was. I
it's
thought it
county
was town
property,
property.
it's the same exact
That's what
approval,
our snag has been.
and it's just
Either
a
state
matter of
right away or
funds.
town or county
just-
So
property.
anyways, I'm just putting it towards you because I just thought, you know, having something is better than going and talking pie sky and having nothing. So it's a little bit like Millwood Park versus, you know, $3 million. And I actually think this would, I just think it would really help give Millwood a sense of place.
I appreciate your effort and everything, I just wanna reiterate, you don't expand your house when your roof is collapsing, pay for the new roof. And that's a great idea, but when you have something that we're paying for maintenance, that we can't utilize fully, that goes for all
Fair enough.
boys, girls, men, women, all age, there's a playground there, everything, you have to take care
We
of that.
could do it, and we could go out to bond. The question is, if there's a desire to go out to bond, and Rob Deary already said that we could fund it, and we're getting the cell tower, and we're gonna get revenue for the cell tower. The point you made happens to be a good point, which is Senator Harkin is not gonna wanna give us a $250,000 bond to be used, $250,000 grant to pay off a bond. Any senator, Harkin, anybody, is gonna wanna have, you know,
Bragging rights.
they're gonna wanna have a ribbon cutting, or they're gonna wanna
tangible.
have,
Yeah.
they're gonna wanna be able to say that they did it. So we would need to be able to identify a specific project that the $250,000 is going towards. We can still go out to bond, but he's gonna want something tangible. He's not gonna say, I wanna put it towards financing a
So-
bond.
I would be really interested to, so if the two projects are the basketball inclusive playground, the Millwood Park, plus we're gonna have to also factor in funding, the completion of the the
Now, the
downtown
lights are on the
Chappaqua. No, I'm saying all of that, Millwood Park, all of that stuff. And could you come up
You could do the lights right
by
here.
some point in time, reasonable point in time, how you think the best way for us to allocate the monies either from grants to set out bonds and pay for various things. Or, you know, you've got different pockets, you've got the SG money from Chappaqua, you've got
That's
the,
not really his
No, but he's the controller that
decisions
has
do
to
that.
balance the
Right.
right thing between general fund, reserve fund balance and bonding.
But he balances it based on what we tell him we wanna fund.
Well, if we tell him what the priorities are, he'll tell us the smartest way to fund it, he's got a better financial background than anybody.
Well,
What's a $750,000 bond go?
$50,000.
What, we're rec commission, let's let them deal with all that crap. Do you need us anymore?
No, but really,
No, I think,
we shouldn't
Yeah, I mean, I have
discount
to look
that
at the
because
time.
like I
Because
do
you-
it all the time for work where you set up a loan document and then you make sure income coming in is the same thing, so it offsets, so you can use the money to
Yes.
spend on something else. So it actually is a good point, and we shouldn't discount it, that if we know we have, let's say $5,000 coming in a month, we can utilize that for something. And instead of spending $5,000 a month, if we can use that money to get $1 million, and it equals the cost of paying off, or $750, whatever the exact number is, that equals the cost of the bond payments, then you're actually getting a much bigger bang for your buck with the same amount of money.
it's cause money's cheap, but we're not gonna get 5,000 a month at first. That's just something, I wanna stick to the facts, we're not getting 5,000 a month.
But I also think tying the Millwood money to the rec fields and rec fields exclusively, which is an entire town benefit, I think kind of hampers that window for 30 years, as long as the cell tower.
But it's a great
no,
beautiful
it's
park.
designated to Millwood no matter what.
Right, go into Millwood no matter
What the
what.
question is, are we designating
It
it
could
all
go to
now?
sidewalks, it could
But
go
we
to
don't
other
necessarily
improvements.
have to bond all of it, we could,
But
if you only need
but for us to make that
500,000
decision
right
for the
now.
next 30 years, and the cell tower isn't even built yet?
Yeah, so this is not happening anytime
Yeah,
soon,
I guess that doesn't have anything to do with us.
Right,
so that's why
So-
We still need to decide, even
But
if we
anyways-
decide to go to bond, and we still need to designate a project that the 250 is going to attach to, because to Jeremy, to your point, he's not gonna want to put 250 towards, and quite honestly, he's not gonna wanna do probably even what I said, 125 here and 125 there. He's gonna want one project that he can say that he made this happen.
Yes.
and I feel
That's
Millwood
what I mean,
Park
that's sort of the
is
spirit of the grant.
how long would it take for you to sort of
That's
look
how
at
we
that
got
and
here.
give a recommendation? I personally would be interested in what you think the best way to do it, I would value your input on
well,
that.
just 250.
The lights.
You could
The lights?
do a bunch of things, combination.
That's
I'm not-
a difficult thing for me
Lights
to
is
say,
gonna take a while.
that's, so,
The light
the board and certain members of the board having kind of,
but that was the high
so,
end bid, that
as the rec commission,
Shall I
would like
come
to
and
use,
speak?
Doesn't
the
help.
rec commission would like to use $250 on new projects. They don't want to start a project.
But he might be.
There's not a new project that exists right now.
No, we'd be creative.
We'd have to create,
Be creative.
And then he
no,
is,
like plan that
he
first, I mean,
likes fundraising.
we keep throwing $1 million out.
That was sort of where I was going
We
with
don't even
that
know
net new
what's-
investment. Like, I think if
I'll
I'm being
send you an
genuine
email. I
about
need
the spirit of
to know
the
what the
grant
project
from
is.
Senator Harkin, it's that we need to go find $250,000 new that we haven't already committed ourselves to spending. So that's sort of, but that's why I also answered you, if someone wants to come along and offer us $500,000 or $1 million to invest in parks, we can find a place for that, absolutely. So, yeah, that was sort of where I was going with that comment.
I understand, but at the same time, if you have a project that's not fully funded,
Yeah.
and you're making it
Playing in
reality,
tennis court or
and it costs more than 250,
Right.
I understand what you're
The
saying.
baseball
I
is
understand.
But
between
if
4 and
a project costs 750 and we only have 500,
And I
you know.
said that
Right.
they typically come
But
in
I
twice as
I do think it's
expensive
worth
as
noting how much
competitors.
of,
Right, I am.
not all of it, but a big chunk of that debt differential is stuff that's not parks.
But we need the parking.
I think
Yeah,
we're also
I agree.
making this decision, we have to rebid the basketball court, see what it actually comes out, how it actually bids out, because
Right, we're
if
assuming
it
it's-
comes in under what we think, under what's been currently bid, then the discussion's kind of moot,
Fair enough.
right?
Yeah, but Matt, I have to tell you that even if we take out in
Totally fair.
Blackjack.
the parking lot stuff,
Yeah, we're not
we're still
under-
100, yeah,
I
but,
understand,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
my
I think
point before was that would have been something, had we executed on this a year ago, we would have had to come up with it from some other source.
Right, or, yeah,
Or not done the project, which I don't think would have been the likely outcome.
right, and the reality is that at the end of the day, the playground that's out there can't remain.
Yeah,
So
it's-
we have to do something.
Yeah, I agree.
And plus, there's people, like, they're not here right now, but there's our Every Person's Connected committee who Just like you guys wanted, basketball court in Millwood be fixed up there, they want an inclusive playground.
Yeah.
No, and then we're on target for it.
Well, the good news about that one is that we
So I
need a new
think what we're
playground,
talking-
and we're happy to make it inclusive, so it works for both parties, right? That's an easy win.
So, the way I look at it is if the front parking lot is removed, because that's something that has to be fixed up anyways. And then we're looking at an overage versus the original estimate of like $150,000. Okay, 160. Then if what we're looking at is a $450,000 upgrade to Millwood Park, $250,000 is to run Parkham. So that leaves us a $200,000 delta.
If you're using those numbers that you just said, the assumption of all of that, then I would pay for it
With
out of our
cash?
savings.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Wouldn't
borrow
bother
those
bonding.
small amounts of money. But I don't know that that is the extent of everything.
That is the, and then there.
Well, that is the extent of
I
what
said
this one
400,000
person
possibly.
told us for a small, so they talked about spending for parking, that's not included in there.
But I think right now
For-
the actual ask is,
What you just said,
What I
you're
just
telling me
said.
200,000 for that park and 160 for back here, then you would just pay for it in cash.
then
But
that's a
200 for the
decision
park
we
is
should
not
make.
enough, that's not
No,
gonna
but
get them anything.
plus the $250,000 from Harkham's, that pays for the total upgrade of Millwood Park. And the $150,000, if we assume that the front parking lot has to be done anyways, pays for the basketball and the inclusive playground.
It
Those are
doesn't-
two major upgrades.
It doesn't though, because first of all, Ike said the cost of the lights, when he talked to me, he said it'd be about 400,000. By the way, plus we haven't mentioned this yet, if we touch Millwood Park, you have to make it ADA compliant. And that's gonna be probably another 100,000 right there. So even if you did the lights
Make
for
it
300,
500,000.
now you're talking 400, because it's ADA compliant, and light's gonna cost 400.
Lights are expensive.
Yeah, the number is probably not 2, it's probably 3 to 5, right,
No lights.
depending on, no, I mean, 3 to 5, you have to add on to Harkham's money to do everything that was on the wish list.
Does that include the ADA stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm giving you a $200,000 range, so there's a lot of room for me to be wrong in that number. But I mean, my point is, I think that's probably still gonna find yourself on the boundary. I mean, my experience with municipal finance is, your point is, you don't issue a bond every time you need a couple $100,000.
No, so traditionally, the town has borrowed between 3 and 5 years, and it's been between 5 and more recently, like $18 million. So we typically, we're in a good position cash-wise, that we can advance funds for a short period of time. And certainly not for something like that project, or smaller project, a couple $100,000, a couple dump trucks, things like that, we do. So we'll make the purchase, advance the funds, and then borrow the money on that schedule, 3, 4, 5 years.
I just think philosophically that, because I agree with Lisa's point before, that you ideally you kind of have these bonds be self-liquidating, that there's revenue that kind of backs them up, but you're not gonna do that for every investment and every
You can't, it's not
$1,000 revenue
possible.
stream, it's just not efficient, right?
But if you do have like we mentioned with the train station parking lot, I mean, that's perfect, that's how the money should go. So you have commuters using the lot and are causing the wear and tear, and they're paying for it. You have the revenue coming from that side of town, and it's going to that side of town, and it makes sense.
Right.
Well, it's also because there was a negative to the cell tower as far as the appearance, even though it's among the electrical towers, it's still a cell tower, and
Right.
so the benefit goes to.
Yeah.
To the area, which
Total
makes
sense.
sense.
But anyway, so yes, I would be very interested, but if those are the priorities.
If those are the I mean, I'm telling you, sitting right at the table right now, if those are the numbers, the exact numbers, then my recommendation would be to take it from fund balance, that would be your decision. But
Okay.
if it's that small of an amount, we're talking a couple $100,000, and that's what I would tell you to do.
Let's call it between 3 and 500,000.
I'm saying with that number,
Okay.
I haven't seen,
So Jill,
so this was presented to me at 584,000, that's why I borrowed what I borrowed. In December of 17, that's what the number was presented to me, it's not that anymore. So
It's a different playground, it's a
I
different
didn't change
covering.
the
No,
project.
no, it's
I-
totally fine, just Jill, as from your perspective, if what we wanna do is move to a point where the money for the Millwood Park upgrade and the money for the playground and the basketball court are, in essence, a resolution is made to allocate that from fund balance in order to make those two projects a reality. How much more work on your end do you think that the town needs to do?
We need to hire an engineer to come in and actually do this. I mean, this is for the lights, but I'm confident that there's site work that has to be done, so we'd have to take in and hire, prepare an RFP, go out to bid. It's okay, I mean, we do this all the time. I mean,
Okay.
This is what I suggest, just real quick.
Well, I don't know if Jill had, I just wanted Jill to finish the thought.
Yeah, I mean, just, we would have to go out to RFP to get an engineer, landscaping consultant to come in. They need to do site work, I think. Because once we touch the park, we have to make it ADA compliant, and right now, the entrance to, there are entrances there that are problematic. It's not a problem. A landscape designer, an engineer is gonna come in, they're gonna be able to tell you what exactly site work needs to be done, what you need to do to make it ADA compliant. Since we brought them in, it probably would be in our best interest to have them take a look at the rest of the park and see what they might want to do conceptually to the playground, to the tennis courts, to see, give us estimates as to what we would need to do in order to do those.
These aren't things that we can do in-house?
We probably can if
If that
Bob
project's
Cioli,
over.
if Bob Cioli isn't managing the downtown infrastructure, but if he is, I can't drag him off that. So, yeah, is this the sort of thing we would do in-house? We probably could.
Alright,
We
so
probably- but timing.
We're not,
Okay, so
I think we just wanna avoid having it be a $1.2 million
No, and I
park
completely
project
agree
as
with that. And the
opposed
other
to
thing I just wanna say is, I so appreciate the rec commission being here, and what's really helpful to Rob and I, and ultimately to the board, and helpful to be able to get these projects on our radar and funded and a reality, is for there to be some sort of, master plan, and forgive me for using the term, but ideally what we'd like to know is, what are the priorities of the rec commission going forward? What are the projects that you guys wanna see? What are the conditions of the parks? What needs immediate attention? The Hala talks about need, want, sort of thing. What needs immediate attention? What would we like down the road? What do we have to do because, it's not functioning and it's falling apart? And if we had an idea of what those projects were and what a general idea of what they cost, we then have an ability to take and plan for them in the future. And the problem is that we find ourselves like knee-jerk reacting to things instead of being able to plan them out. And it's always just so much more helpful and so much more efficient if we just know that they're coming and we can plan for them.
Okay, so what I would suggest is we're gonna move ahead with the basketball court and the inclusive playground. And let me just finish my thought before anybody attacks me. And we basically, we use fund balance, whatever it's gonna be, I mean, hopefully it's not too much, it has to come in obviously reasonable, we use fund balance to take care of that. The rec commission, I think, should go back and tell us exactly what they'd like to see in Millwood Park. And then from there, we then would allocate Harkham's bond to one of those components, maybe it's the lights around the field, whatever it is. And then after you come back with exactly what you wanna see there, then we can work on getting estimates for it. And at that point, we decide if we need to go out to bond or not.
That makes sense, I'm all for that, but let's just put it this way, I think that I may not be here next year, so do it fast. I can tell you from my perspective, if Millwood Park is really gonna help the town meet the demand that's the rec department services require, I'm fully supportive of ARPA's money going to that and for us to put the money to make sure that that project is completed in a timely fashion.
By the way, we're getting new sidewalks, that's gonna connect the
Right.
Chico's all the way to Millwood Park with a nice crosswalk to Millwood
Right.
Park.
That's another benefit too for that
That's
park,
true.
it's gonna be a real potential destination.
Yes.
Make 'em so vibrant.
We agree. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Jill, you said
That way people
before,
can park at the Chico's,
Do
and
it
walk there
Walk
safe.
across the street,
this is what we wanna do
We're on it.
with the
How about
dialogue,
opening
so
up
that
the
we
gate
can-
between the field and Rocky, so I don't have to walk all the way around?
Honestly, John, we used to do that,
Yeah,
Maybe not
okay?
why not?
We did that,
Maybe
you wanna know
once or
why?
twice a year.
John, you wanna know why?
Yes,
Yeah, I
in
do.
the long run.
They used to cut off the lock
I'm happy
because it's our fence.
Yeah, I didn't get to say that.
But you know, when it
We
was
didn't
Rocky,
have any other ideas.
it's the hardware store,
But there are,
and they have a lot of locks.
And they don't want people,
And every time we cut it off, they put a new one
they
on.
don't want anybody watching, stay in parking.
Exactly.
So it's a parking thing for their,
Yeah,
I believe we were at the
But it's our
75
fence.
100 rate.
right,
And we should be able to do that.
right.
it's probably.
Yeah, I would
And they put a
imagine.
new lock on every time. One season it was like that.
Yeah.
What if you just put an
Okay,
opening
we
in a
have one-
fence, like forgot about one,
Right.
it's behind the
I thought
trees.
So we could,
We could,
Like,
we
I don't
could,
like-
we could try to,
I'm gonna leave too, so you're gonna lose your form, I gotta go to the bathroom.
we could try to outlast them with locks. How many locks they have in
with
it?
NYU
But
contract.
can you,
So we can revisit
no,
that
like
with
in
that.
a, in
If they
a bullpen
come
where
through,
you
I'm sure you'll be
have to
happy
walk
for us to tell
around
you
like
we only
this,
need
and
20.
so there's
So
not
let's see what they
actually
say, and if we
okay,
strike out there, then maybe we'll do that. This is like a
I
grant.
was wondering why that was, why that was,
City planning
there was
program
never
as part
that,
of their
that
thesis or
linkage there,
whatever.
because it
We'll
would
do
seem
it
to make
more or
more
less
sense
at
to
cost.
us.
There's a gate there.
I didn't even know there was a gate there.
Yeah, with a lock.
Where's the, obviously up the first base line somewhere, right field line somewhere.
Is it the NYLAF?
Yeah, consortium.
Yeah, NY class, which is the same thing.
okay, we're ready,
And-
go to the.
Okay, welcome back. Our second thing on our agenda, we have Rob Deary still here. He's gonna give us a little financial update as we pass the mid-year part. Period.
So in the packet, I gave an update for the downtown project. I know Hal already touched on it. I don't know if everybody else had a chance to look at it. That's just the latest and greatest, including the ELQ change order that I think you're gonna approve tonight. So that's everything that I know up to date.
Right, although the board is going to approve it, it's for a cost overrun on the granite curbing. This is all part of the discussion the board had like 2 years ago on restoring the North Greeley sidewalk, the sidewalk in front of Town Hall and the library. So we actually never got an actual change order from ELQ. So finally, they're starting to do that.
have contingency left over, remember those days?
Yeah, well, we thought,
But it's alright, it's getting done, it's getting done.
Zero.
Rob, the only thing I wanna ask.
and the
is-
people on.
No, I'm glad we did it, I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting we should.
And that was before we had $800,000.
Well,
I'm putting what I know of.
No,
Yes.
There
I'm
will
not,
be more
I'm not trying to
change,
say it's a
but-
bad idea, I'm just.
I mean, it's
I'm laughing at
it's
us.
moot at this point, we're not borrowing anymore, so to project what I don't know if that would be helpful. I add them as every change order comes, or even before it gets to you in the sense of a change order. I've got a couple down here that aren't even, that we know, and I'm putting placeholders in there.
Right.
So when I know of those things, I'm putting them in there, but
Which ones are the pictures? Sorry.
So on page 2.
estimated future submissions, we've still got 100,000 because we know there's gonna be some additional drainage, there's gonna be some of those things.
Where's
On the bottom of this,
Oh, on
all the
page
way
1.
down, where you
Oh,
go.
sorry.
I just wanna tell you, if it wasn't, this is the primary document that gives us any transparency
It's
into.
the only project
I
management
just wanna tell you,
document
this
we
is
have.
like the most valuable
Oh.
thing that you could give us, and
Okay.
I really know it took a lot of time to set up.
And I actually just revised how I sent it to you, I'm not sure if you noticed the difference, but I struggled with how to show the change orders and then when they were paid, not to double book them, so
Right, exactly.
really what I've done is just change this and in the revised budget column, it's just what we know is
cleaner.
gonna be spent, so yeah, I hope it's informative.
But,
It's not been easy to track, but
I think
Some
the
of the
only
numbers
column I
changed
would,
though. Did you change some of the numbers on the change orders?
yes, as some of them have been refined, what are you noticing that changed?
No, I just,
The North Greeley additional paving and sidewalk, that, there were 2 entries, that changed because that had been paving, sidewalk and curbing. The curbing is now included in the change order 30, so I
okay.
backed that money out of that. I don't know if really anything else changed in the change order.
the only, and I don't wanna, and I'm probably gonna use all the wrong words, so I'm sorry about that. But it's the unfunded balance that I think should be included at the top line. Because right now it has remaining amount, that's fine, but it's the unfunded balance versus estimate, which is going to have to either come from
Right,
some
yeah.
other source, and
I
I
can
just
do
think that running number, just to keep it in our head, rather than me having to do the math, would be really helpful.
Okay. Add that. That's easy.
But I, this is like literally the only thing, and, yeah.
No, spreadsheets are my thing, so. Nick likes it too.
Yeah, very helpful.
Alright,
Nick's a lawyer, he's
so
not
how
a
we doing with
spreadsheet
the revenues this year?
So just kind of on to the next sheet, and I thought since I was here that I would give you a financial update overall. And what I'm doing here is I'm just taking some of the key drivers in the four main funds, general, highway, refuse, and water, and we'll talk about them. What I did across the top is I did it year to date, so we're basically, if I did it through today and I did with the check run that was just cut, we're 63.29% done with the year. So we're looking for revenues and expenditures to be around that area. So if you look at the general fund, including non-tax revenue, because obviously all the tax revenue is 100% booked, so. For the non-tax revenue, we're at about 60% for the year. When you look at some of the drivers, sales tax, I got last week, the second quarter payment. That was nice, it was 714,000, so we are, even without, and I'll talk in a second about the additional 1% tax that Westchester County passed, but even without that, we were on target to exceed budget probably by 150,000, and we have raised it each year over the last few years. The county has estimated, that went into effect August 1st, the county has estimated that the town will see about $400,000 more. I don't have to budget for this year, so that's good. I'm just projecting. I don't know if we'll see that or not, but sales tax, the last 2 quarters have been the 2 largest quarters that I've seen in the 9 years that I've been here as comptroller, so I think that's pretty good.
So it's an additional 400 for the remainder of this
Yeah,
fiscal year,
so-
and then it's 900 for
900,000,
next year.
right, so it's a big
Yeah.
influx of money,
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking,
all good.
some of the big drivers, commuter parking, those are the parking permits, we usually get about 950,000, we're well on track for that. Even though we've sold all the yearly passes, we do still, throughout the year, sell half a year, 3/4 of a year, half a year, quarter of a year, so we'll still get some more revenue coming in. Camp revenue, this is a pretty good number right now, we're at 95% of the budget. We still do expect about $40,000 more to come into that line. There's some other camps that we lump in, we classify them as camps, even though they're not summer camps, that go into that revenue line. So based on years past, we look like we're gonna exceed the budget this year for that. Interest earnings is, and I was just talking to Nick, we had a couple nice interest rate increases after we made the budget last year. And we accepted at the beginning of the year NY Class, which was a kind of an investment consortium. We've been getting upwards of about 2.3% interest off that. That just dropped in the last couple of weeks because the Fed lowered the rate, but as you can see, we're significantly above the estimate last year, the budget estimate, and we expect some more. It'll be a little bit less going forward. Once I make the county whole in October, I lose about, I think it's about $8 million or so that I have to pay them. So that money that's sitting there earning interest now, I won't have the interest on that for the rest of the year. Building permits, those still look pretty strong. We're at about 69% of the budget. I would think we're probably on pace to reach the budget. I'm guessing that we probably won't exceed it as far as we have the last few years. Number one, we did bump it up again, and two, I just, based on where we are, just my feeling that we'll reach our budgetary number, but I don't think we'll blow through it like we have in years past.
Well, if we exceeded it, if we've raised it, that's still a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
You get building permits for the retail for Chapwood Crossing, right?
What's that?
If a new store is opening at Chapwood Crossing, you get, is that a separate building permit fee you get? Do we get?
I don't think so.
Or is that included in,
Yeah, I
they
think
pay that
that's
one fee?
included.
I think someone knows very.
No, it's a separate fee.
It's a
For
building
each store
permit
that
from the
comes in,
build-out.
it's a separate fee.
Okay.
They apply for their permits and pay them.
So we
It's a
have
building
that-
permit fee from the value of their build out, but you've assessed SG the value of the actual frame of the building in their building permit.
Got it.
And then we still eventually will have the houses being built out, the homes being built out.
Right, but they're gonna have some
More
stores.
Yeah, it's more, not this year, no, correct, right, I didn't mean that,
And the
yes.
cost of the community is gonna be greater than the revenue from the building permits, so it's okay,
All right,
let's not go into that.
Stop, please, guys.
What about the joy that everybody
Please
loves?
not have another
Please,
difficult
please,
political
thank you,
conversation
Rob.
right now.
Everybody's pretty happy with Chapwood Crossing. People at Lifetime seem pretty happy.
Rob, please, go ahead.
The next line I'm highlighting is the concession income. That's where we receive the cable access fee money and rent from the train station, among other things. That line's only at about 26% right now, but at this point in the year, we've only received 1 out of the 4 quarter payments. So there's a little bit of a lag when we receive them. So we're still pretty much on target there. And the last line under revenue is state aid mortgage tax. That's where I do have a little bit of concern. I did have concern last year, and the summer months kind of pulled us through. The first payment of the year was actually lower than the first payment last year. So a little bit pessimistic. I'm hoping we come close to the budget number. Unfortunately, I won't have that till December, so I probably would revise that downward a little bit in next year's budget. Just, I think we all see that the kind of market has slowed a little bit, and prices have come down a little bit. Even if there might still be the volume, I know the prices are coming down, and that would affect the mortgage tax.
Well, I spoke to a broker today, she has 6 houses in contract
Really?
for closing.
Oh,
She
maybe
said
we'll
they're
have a
selling,
strong-
she said they're selling, it's just not, not the highest.
Yeah, I mean, I hear from Josh that the top end is kind of coming down,
Even
so.
higher.
So jumping over to the expenditure side, at this point, we're about 59.8% expended, so we're a little less than that 63.29. Just a couple categories to highlight. The employee benefits is about 56%. Just a couple things to highlight on that. Workers' comp was paid in full already, so that's included there. But retirement, we don't pay that again until December, so only the first 3 months are included. So it's hard to get a real gauge, but we look to be on target there. Nothing out of the ordinary. Legal billing, we've paid 6 of the 12 months already, and we're at 49.31%, so we're pretty much dead on to Nick is telling me he doesn't expect anything huge to come through in the litigation line or the
I've heard that from lawyers
Well, we're looking to see.
Sure, I would hold my breath.
A couple of the other big drivers, the police budget, you see it's a $5.2 million chunk of our budget, and they're pretty much right on target, 62.25%. Their overtime looks good, their salaries look good.
And we should be saving a little money, no, because we've lost the lieutenant. Because Lieutenant Carroll became Chief Carroll, we didn't replace that.
Yeah, it'll come out in the wash, because the chief got a reasonable payout, so.
Oh, that's right, Brody left.
Yeah, so that kind of happens. Those are, I don't necessarily budget those. Usually what happens in a year when that happens, so we lose a higher paid officer, we gain a lower paid officer, and that difference winds up usually being the payout that they get. So, on the face of it, you think you're gonna save something, but yeah, probably not. The other department I called out was the recreation total budget, looking really good there, 53.81%. Expenditures seem to really be in control there. Jumping to the highway fund, there's not really very many revenue sources other than taxes. We've got the CHIPS money. We haven't received that yet. That comes in December, so that's at 0 right now. In addition to the CHIPS this year, we did get PAVE New York and Extreme Winter Recovery funds. I know we originally didn't think we were getting the Extreme Winter Recovery. We ended up getting those.
Who is that? That's in the non-tax revenue?
That's in the state of CHIPS. Yeah, it's part of the non-tax revenue, yes.
Marvin, it's part of it. I thought we were getting 225 just
225 is CHIPS. We're getting another 42
Oh,
paved New York and 50 or the other way around, close to another $90,000.
Oh, that's the 316, that's
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
that's the 316, got it.
Yeah. On the expenditure side, we're at about 70% expended, but that's not terrible when you factor in about $1 million worth of paving. That's all included in that right now. So, that's not something that's spread out over the 12 months. It's already paid for, so we're looking all right.
Isn't the 225 included in that too?
Well, so the paving line is 700 and the permanent improvements is the 223, 424, so the total gets up to.
Expenditures versus revenue.
Yeah.
Right, I know, but it's still, of this,
It's offset,
right,
yeah.
right, right.
So snow overtime, we've got a little less than 30,000, hopefully we won't, I don't even wanna say it.
Too soon to say, don't make any promises.
Our salt budget, we're pretty much there, Jerry tells me we'll top off, so we will be 100% expended on salt. Again, no more provided,
Well, we came in really low on brush and tree work.
so far.
We
If
need
you
to
remember
keep
that,
going.
we raised that budget significantly from last year.
That's why we gotta be careful with that.
But there's purchase orders, there's work outstanding, so I've included one of the purchase orders in there that was entered in the system, but there's
Have we
always.
talked about how Con Ed is doing with their work that they're doing? They were doing that work on private property in town, like 3 different locations they were gonna do work in.
They don't call me back, but yeah,
Well, that's why September they'll be here.
They've been in my neighborhood
They should be here
nonstop.
in September.
Really?
I think your neighborhood
Replacing
was
all
one
the
of the 3
poles.
places that they
Yeah,
were
that
gonna
they were
be.
doing it.
Yeah.
Cutting down trees.
Jumping in the refuse fund, kind of like highway, there's not many sources of revenue in the refuse fund other than taxes. The compost and mulch, we've already exceeded budget this year, which I guess is good and it's bad, cause you're also about to approve a repair to the horizontal grinder. So, the more we use it, the
Well, the more you use it, right,
yeah, so, I mean, there's revenue and it's going out the door on the other side, so.
is what it is.
The expenditures for the refuse fund, 58%, those are looking pretty good. The contractual service charges, if you remember, we had to increase that last year. We were gonna come in at or under budget on that. And if you look at the transfer site charges, 36%, that's great.
Yeah.
I think that was able to be controlled. So I know we were a little concerned when we switched back to
That's
single stream.
terrific.
Yeah, it is very good, and I had to double check that, cause I thought it looked really low to me, and we did pay 6 months of it.
Way to go, Newcastle.
Not bad.
I feel guilty about
Curiosity, are we
Wait,
doing
separate
on
your
our recycling, are we doing the recycling of compost still?
Yeah,
The food stuff, yeah.
Dan, do we have any
still do.
sense of how many people are actually
I
doing
haven't
it?
got an update lately.
They have to buy more kits, I know that.
That's true.
Yeah, they
No,
did
but
have to buy one.
do we
too.
know how
I ran
many
over
people
mine.
approximately, how many tons are dragging away?
No,
I don't know, it's,
It would be good to have them in actually and do an update, I think,
Yeah,
on
yeah.
how it went, cause it was meant to be a pilot program, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all
they
right.
did have an update in the newsletter, but it was like months ago. When they,
I know they
When
do a
they approved
big
the
push
additional
on
kits.
Yeah.
community
something.
day, so it's
Total expenditures,
So go.
by all means, continue.
Okay, so the last fund we'll talk about is the water fund. It's really hard to get a gauge on that right now because the big revenue period are the months of really June through September, and a lot of that's not even been billed yet, so our highest billing month is November.
It's
been
the
raining a
wettest
lot.
year ever.
Well, it was up through May, but I think June and July have been a little bit different, so.
My pond level is very high.
All my
It's the
bikini plants got
wettest
flooded.
year ever.
So,
They all run.
you know, at this
No
point,
algae, nothing.
we're only 37% collected on the revenue.
And you can't guess how much I think is outstanding.
It's really difficult, but when you look at the water fund, the expenditures are 44%. There's a lot of things that are related.
Right, correlation.
So when you're selling less water, you're buying less water from New York City, you don't have as much as the excess per capita. You're not paying for the chemicals, so a lot of the expenditures in turn. So it's hard to get a gauge on that. Most years we add to fund balance from the water. This could be a year that we don't.
yeah, but you
It's
should
hard to
just
know
be
that
aware
at this point.
I circulated the letter from New York City, they are gonna be doing the switch over. They're shutting down the Catskills, so our electric fees are gonna be significant.
That starts in November.
To work the
Right, so
pump station.
when you look at that's the Croton backup, which I've highlighted here, we've got a total budget of 350,000, we've spent 32,000 so far, so
Well, my
that was the
understanding is that the
anticipation.
project was more expensive than that, Croton backup.
Well, I
That
think
just-
Jill just mentioned the electricity, but the actual project,
Yeah, we have actually a change order to go
yeah, for
from
126 or
Yeah,
something.
something like that.
October 6th.
October 6th, yeah, so.
So that's our backup pump.
where it's out of the ground, it's with Sulzer there, and it's
Yep.
rehabbing it and hoping to get it back, so we'll be asking them for that.
So that was just a quick update on where we are
So we
financially.
seem fairly solid.
Alright.
Yeah, I would say
That's
so.
something, we're in a good fiscal
We are,
position.
we budget pretty responsibly and we really do a very good job of controlling expenses, so. And the last page I included, I don't really have much commentary on that, just to get it in front of everybody again, where I project the fund balance to be through 2023, and, you know, I've talked before about using allocations of fund balance each year. I took 18 as a base year, and then for any debt service that was over that base year, we were allocating fund balance. So that was through 2023 when the some of the debt drops off and we go back to actually the debt service for that year is gonna be less than it was in 2018. So that's why I project through there.
Even just having a 5-year outlook, no matter what, I think just the rolling, like as we close out
Sure.
this year, move on, it should just be drop off 2016, no one gives a crap.
Yeah, well,
That money's long gone.
right, but I do that to historically show what
Right,
it's.
gotta put perspective and see where we are.
Right,
Yeah.
the trends.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Alright, great, thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks so much.
Alright, so we're gonna jump right into the Chapel Crossing, because that's the only other
Jump right into, they've only been here for.
issue that people are waiting for, if I'm correct.
That's on page
Are
74
you,
of the packet.
I'm Bill Richardson here, City DEP,
Oh, welcome.
With what, I'm sorry?
with New York City DEP.
Okay. Hope I didn't say anything.
Oh, were you here to talk about the letter?
I
And
can,
then-
well,
and
at
that's
your
gonna
pleasure, you know,
All
you're
right.
conducting all your business and I'm not on the agenda, so
It's a very well written letter.
wait my turn.
So what,
we not
I'll
do
go to
it?
Chapel Crossing. Let's do DEP first, we gotta keep them happy, no offense, guys.
You actually really do like it.
Yeah, you guys wanna keep them happy too.
Come
on up.
Come speak about it.
So join you? Yeah, have a seat. Thank you. Pleasure to meet you all.
You too,
I'm
thank
New
you.
York City's manager for our community water program. I work for Deputy Commissioner Paul Rush, who signed
the
letter today, so I am not Deputy Commissioner Paul Rush, but you know, our message is fairly short and sweet. I mean, we do have planned aqueduct shutdowns. This is the second year of going into the Catskill Aqueduct Repair and Rehabilitation Program. It's part of our large 10-year capital plan and our Water for the Future program. The Catskill program is your vital resource. It's been in service since 1905, so it's a 100-plus-year-old asset. It hasn't been meaningfully taken out of service, and you know that success of that supply has really been a little bit challenging for us, because once you have such a successful asset in terms of reliability and continued service, then it becomes very difficult to take that out of service for any length of time. So that's really the reason why we drafted the letter. It's not the first letter we've sent you regarding the Catskill Aqueduct program, but you know, we wanted to be sure that you were aware of the proper timelines that we have in mind, and you know, particularly with the New Croton Inningwood Pump Station repair project, the expanded scope of work. You know, DEP would never not support an expanded scope of work, but the 10-week lead time option in that scope of work is, you know, a direct conflict with our shutdown program. So, you know, the 7-week lead time option might be more doable. I am not an engineer. I am a scientist and a water supply manager and professional, so I can comment engineering wise, you know, on the relative merits between the 3-week option, the 7-week option, and the 10-week option that Sulzer's quoted you there. But the
We were going for the expedited.
the expedited would definitely be helpful. I think the expedited, you know, and maybe less of the new parts. You know, Sulzer can repair the pump according to that quotation.
Right.
You know, without any new parts, they need some minor new parts. You know, and then they could start to add castings from the bowls and the additional pump parts. So those are important pieces to get in place, whether you go for the longer term option or not. I mean, my message here is to say that, you know, we have, you know, literally 200 work personnel lined up, and we have lots of equipment lined up to start a
So you're not
shutdown
waiting for us?
on
Is that what
October
you're telling
6th. I'm telling you that we're not waiting for
Are
you.
you gonna tell that to Jerry Marshall, or am I telling that to Jerry Marshall? I just wanna understand clearly.
It would come better from you.
Yeah.
So can you just speak,
Maybe not.
Jill, sorry, I don't mean to be sort of thing, so
This is our backup pump.
this is our backup pump. I remember there was this big discussion about buying a new one and refurbishing the old one.
Page 71 of these.
I understand, I just read that, we decided to refurbish the old one,
Right, we pulled it up
which is
out of-
fine, because I
we-
think
yes,
we
we-
agreed, that was a discussion, that's good.
Right, actually, it was your suggestion.
It was.
So,
That sounded good.
we took it, we had Sulsar actually take and
Super fantastic.
remove the pump, which is unbelievable, which was an unbelievable process. I saw part of it, Lauren went down to
Yes,
see
I was on
part of
site
it.
for it,
It was
it's quite a large crane, it's a
it-
30,000 ton pick crane for
it
the first
was-
removal.
Yeah, like
So help me understand, so these guys have a deadline that they're going to, which is they're moving forward regardless of where we are in our process, is
Yes,
what
so
you
the
just
town of Newcastle, we can start up at the top high level first. So the town of Newcastle, Stanwood Water District, which
Right.
is your largest water district, supplies water to a good portion of the town, I don't know exactly percentage wise, about
Yeah.
16,000 people population. So that's
pretty much everybody.
that's reliably served on a daily basis.
Everybody not on a well.
Right.
Yes, exactly, from the Catskill Aqueduct that directly serves the Millwood treatment plant. As a backup to that supply, you have the Inningwood pump station.
Right.
That's located on New York City property at our New Croton Aqueduct
I know
shaft.
exactly
three.
where it is,
Right,
Yes, on
right
Inningwood
opposite Tom
Road, if you're
Curry's house.
familiar with the road, it's a
Yeah.
very nice road there. It's extremely deep, it's a
Used to be across from my
1950s
house.
pump station, it's gone through a series of rehabilitations and upgrades over the past number of years. Those pumps that are replaced, they were 1998 vintage pumps, so they're a 20-year-old pump. They generally have about a 10-year lifespan if they're in continuous service. This obviously has not been in continuous service. We haven't, New York City hasn't used the Croton Aqueduct in as much use as it has its Delaware and Catskill aqueducts in recent years, so but we are at a time where we do have a Croton filtration plant, we are able to use that supply reliably, and it is the town's, that's been your backup strategy as well, to put that, put your investments there and to make that, it's not your only backup supply option, there are some interconnections and other things, they're not
Right.
as well fortified from my perspective
No,
and my
that's our
knowledge
plan
base.
A, let's face it.
It is
yeah.
definitely your plan A, with that, so when Catskill goes out of service on October 6th, you have a plan B, which is what normally happens is the water in that Catskill aqueduct really doesn't flow all the way out and drain completely. It kind of rests at an elevation equal with the Kensico Reservoir, if you're familiar with that in
I know
Valhalla.
exactly where it is.
So the normal pool elevation of Kensico Reservoir actually floods backwards all the way to your Millwood plant, so that's been another area, so it has been, we've never really had to really challenge test Newcastle before, so this is your challenge test that you're at, and we're on the eve of that challenge test, cause for August 13th today, we're only about 7 weeks to shutdown time.
Okay,
This
so
is
what does
also
it mean
exciting.
financially to
Okay.
us if we do an expedited plan versus?
But
Not sure.
it's not, it's just a
Exciting in a
matter
good
of,
way
I'm
or
just
bad
gonna
way.
have to speak with Jerry, there were, item number 18 was recommended to us, but it's a 10-week lead time, and that's going to be problematic.
right.
So I'll have to speak to Jerry about what
So
our,
is it item 19, that's right below it, that's basically the same item.
that would give us 7 weeks.
Yeah, that's your 7 week, and the difference
So
between
do
18
we wanna
and
really
19.
cut it that close?
Well,
If
the
it's
7
7
week-
weeks and we're cutting it to 7 weeks, don't we wanna cut it to like 5 weeks and make sure
Yeah, but
there's no
we-
problems?
But we have a pump that is fully functional. This is the backup to that pump. So I will ask Jerry what his, I will ask the board to take and approve the more
Do you like to
expensive
gamble?
option.
Like the
Yeah.
recreation board, the water department would love to have any improved amount to be able to spend.
Right, but I don't know what our options are, and
Love it.
it's not as if we've been dawdling on this, we
I
haven't.
don't know how to read this, I'm so sorry.
Well, I don't know that you would, I don't know
So what's
that we would
the,
be-
so my question to you is, this is a question I'd ask Jerry and Rochelle, if we are basically saying we'll have the pump, we have been working on that pump for 3 years, right? So we've known about it for 3 years.
no,
We've
we've
been working on the pump station, so. So my own feeling is like cutting it like right to the last minute to make sure you've got the other, just.
Okay, so with all due deference to Mr. Richardson, Dr. Richardson?
Richardson, just Mr.
Okay, Mr. Sorry.
Let's have masters.
No, that's okay. No, I'm not, believe me, not denigrating anything. Our ability to test the pumps was limited by the water flow in the aqueducts. You can't test the pumps dry. So it required a scheduling that was a bit of a dance.
We were able
And
to test the one in February,
Right.
and for a week, 10 days, about 22 million gallons.
right,
passed
and our
through.
issue
That's
was that
7
we
days
kept
of usage.
blowing fuses and our circuits.
Then we upgraded the.
So we had to isolate the problem, we were able to isolate it, identify it, upgrade it so that we were actually able to run the pumps.
Right.
That's when we were able to determine that
Good thing
one
we
was
did that.
fine. Yeah, I mean, Terry's very methodical in his care of this whole thing. But unfortunately, my situation right now is that I don't know if I understand, bless you, I understand that 7 weeks is preferable to 10, got that. But if 7 weeks is too tight, in light of this schedule, I don't know that Jerry knew of the October 6th date.
He did, I think so.
I don't know how he felt about it one way or the other, so I can't and I won't speak for him, but I'll discuss it with him. I would just ask the board that they approve whatever Jerry has requested, and if it turns out that he's more comfortable with the 7 weeks based upon Mr. Richardson's recommendation, then it would just be less than that anyhow.
Okay.
Okay, cause I'm just looking at this and I'm just like I find this very confusing, because if I'm looking at option 19, which I'm assuming it's cheaper
Why is it cheaper?
and it's quicker, and the only thing that's missing is a discharge bowl.
Well, it looks like what's happening in 18 is they're replacing the first stage and the discharge bowl, and it looks like in 19
They're
they're
repairing
repairing it
it.
rather than replacing it.
Replacing, exactly. So these are custom forged parts. So the foundry is what is the lead time item.
Yeah.
So they'll need to actually
Cool.
create
There
a
you go.
mold and forge the steel to
Got
actually
it.
produce that, and then they epoxy coat that steel for corrosion resistance and.
So we are paying a premium for a rush delivery, basically.
No, I think it's that we're paying a
No.
premium for a creation of a brand new one versus a repair.
Repairing
one.
it.
Got it, so I guess so really,
So the
So-
DEP doesn't
We don't
typically
have a
work
problem
with
with
towns to schedule the work?
We broadcast our shutdown schedule for
Uh-huh.
starting 10 years ago, so we.
Oh, okay, so we've had 10 years to get this right.
It's going backwards, I mean, we did.
With all respect, this October 6th date has not been,
We've known, we've known.
No, we haven't known this date, and they have moved it off a number of times, but all fairness. I do have a complaint from a resident on Hidden Hollow about the condition of the entry to, your shaft. Who has sent me pictures and is very upset on how it's been left, so I just, for the record, if we could just tidy that area.
Would you like to send me those photos?
I would love to see those
I'm
photos.
sorry, no conservation.
Hidden Hollow Road, Hidden Hollow.
To the state.
Not the city.
Road,
I thought it was the city.
Millwood,
Yeah,
Hidden Hollow Lane?
might be lame. Jason
You
just
know-
walked out, Jason would know.
Yeah, Jason, I only call it Hidden Hollow. You may be right, maybe Lane.
Hidden Hollow is not a lane, it's Hidden Hollow Road.
So, it may not be in a
Road.
state
Road. Tons of
currently
fences.
where
I
they
know.
can necessarily
It's lane,
lane.
Lane,
tidy it
yeah.
up, just because the work progress is
You
doing lots
evidently
of
haven't
work
been
in
there
a
for a
non-shutdown.
while, because I told him it was an ongoing, he's like, well, they've just left it, and I said, sir, I guarantee you they haven't left. They're there, you may not see them, but they're coming back.
Yes, we fully will be mobilizing, the 10-week aqueduct shutdown is
Yeah.
the in-aqueduct portion of the work. There's exterior work going along the corridor that the aqueduct runs through, during the rest of the time of the project scope. So we'll be doing shutdowns this year.
Yep.
2019 for 10 weeks, we have 2020 for 10 weeks, same. Our start date is always an October 1st. Start date is what we list as the scheduled item, and then it tends to slide, for convenience of not starting on a Saturday, not starting in the middle of a week.
Does it slide 3 weeks, for example?
Sometimes it does, this year it is not expected to, this year we are holding the line on October 6th, is my only message today,
I tried.
so. It is the predecessor project for our Delaware Aqueduct shutdown, which gets water to the Kensico Reservoir and to most of southern Westchester County and the city proper. So this photo is from this morning. This tunnel actually was completed underneath the Hudson River this morning.
That is
We're-
so cool.
Do we get tours?
Pretty cool.
Did you guys, did Summit Greenfield do that?
Under the
Under the sawmill.
Those guys can't board.
There's pretty good stuff. I did not get a tour here. Our summer
Oh,
interns
darn.
got to get a
Yeah.
tour. of
What
this
kind of
particular-
board?
Yeah.
It's very
It's
cool.
challenging stuff because sometimes you have to stop work to give tours, and when they're working 24/7, the contractors get a little bit upset about that. But I did bring two copies of the presentation that I'll leave with you. It has additional information about the project schedule, the project scope, and delivery timeframe. So, most of all, what I just wanted to convey to you is that we are concerned about getting that pump station up in a reliable fashion by October 6th, and we urge you to take all steps necessary to do that.
So I'm just curious, did you have this conversation with Jerry Marshall already?
We tried to have a conversation with them about it. We've had conversations with it about it. My staff were on the telephone when they discussed this quote option. And it took us a little bit. It's not the most straightforward thing. It takes 3 or 4 beats to get through before you actually pick up what the different options are and what different directions you can
My
go.
own feeling,
His option's less.
my own
I know.
feeling is that the shorter option is better, but the thing is, if the shorter option could be done since it's a repair, and I understand it's custom
But
forged.
what do we know, Hala? I mean, Jerry
I just
we
don't-
don't know the
We'll wait
difference
till
between
We're
after.
saying, I don't like to wait till the
gold
last minute on
versus
something
gold.
like
Oh my
water.
God.
No, but think about it, I like to wait till the last minute on something like water, because we may have one working pump, but if that pump fails for any reason, we
By
want
the
to
way,
have backup.
since you're
Might be
here,
have to ask
we
Jerry.
could use $10 million for our
Backup,
diversion
isn't it?
projects, here at Newcastle.
There we go.
I mean, you may wanna go back to,
Jason,
Jason,
Jason, close that
Mr.
door.
Rush there.
Close that door. We're gonna get our turn that off.
Those are your wastewater.
Exactly.
Yeah, he only works with clean water, I'm sorry, the wrong department.
Yes, we
Well, I wanna
worked
keep
with
it
the
water
county
clean.
to actually extend the sewer district piece of it, whether or not they extended the trunk main, we did work with them at one point too.
Oh, well, then I'm sorry, you have to stay.
That's why I said close the door. We'll get what we want.
Yeah, catch me in here.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, Thank you. they were good,
If there
thank you.
are any questions that you have, the hidden hollow pictures, please send them to me.
Yes, I'll send them to you.
We'll certainly work them out, and we definitely, encourage open discourse and discussion. We're happy to work with you, and continue to do so.
Great,
Say
thank
hello
you.
to Anthony for us.
Absolutely, I will definitely say hello to Anthony.
Okay.
He sends his apologies, he had a planning board meeting tonight in Monroe and
I
he couldn't
find that
join.
hard to believe that he didn't want to come back and hang out.
I think he ran away too.
I
personally.
think
That's between you and us.
Thank you for coming.
Take care, thank you.
Very nice to meet you all, thank you.
Take care.
Alright, guys, Dave.
I hope you enjoyed the show while you were here.
Yeah.
Fine, I'm a regional commissioner of my soccer program, so.
Oh, that's-
Big, you know.
Come on up, guys.
It's Anthony DeCaro last week.
Oh, really?
Really?
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, when he was there. Alright, hello guys.
Good evening, nice to be here informally at least. Mark Weingarten on behalf of SG Chappaqua BLLC, Chappaqua Crossing, joined by Dave Walsh, who you all know well. We've made 2 official requests that are in letters, although I understand there's some other things that people want to discuss. The first request dates back to October of 2018, where at your board's request, we agreed to make improvements to the Sawmill River Parkway and Roaring Brook Road intersection, which was not related to our approval. You may recall that in the context of trying to get the state on board for us to complete our Route 117 approvals, we were strongly advised that we had to go do intersection improvements down at Sawmill River Parkway, again, not part of our approvals. We agreed to do that, and very willingly, as I recall, and put up a $600,000 cash bond, which we did as well to secure the improvements. In the context of that, we agreed, we thought it was very reasonable that we would be finished within the year, meaning this August 31, a couple of weeks from now. And that we agreed to do that, and it was tied, in fact, at that time to the building permit of the residential piece, that if we weren't done by then, the building permit could not be applied for, although currently, this time we couldn't apply for it anyway, we're still in the middle of an approval process on that, as you're well aware. The town is our co-applicant in the process, and despite the fact that we follow a very lovely gentleman from the New York City DEP this evening, we can tell you that our interactions with that agency have not quite been as good, and the town.
Really, not as cordial?
That's what, we're glad he left before we got here, because he seemed very nice. But again, with the town as our witness, as our co-applicant in the process, it has been tremendously delayed trying to get the DEP. We'd like to get it done, they are going through a process. We're here to tell you tonight that we estimate at least another few months, could be 3 to 4 months, before we get through their process. They've told us part of it is just because they're in a delay. They've had turnover issues, there's all sorts of reasons that the DEP is doing what they're doing.
Sorry, the holdup on the DEP is that they need to approve the plans for this
Yeah,
intersection
that's correct,
improvement?
yeah.
Issue
It's no different than what they did on Route 117.
There's a limit.
Oh, I was right, you said it was, I
Yeah.
said it was DP, not the DEC.
So frankly, if somebody asked what was the alternative, if you took our bond, you couldn't do the work either, cause until the DEP says yes, nobody will go forward with this work, so that's the position that we're in. So what we've asked for is to try not to have to come back again, is to extend this out to next August, to give us a year extra, and to ask you that in the context of that, to have it now tied to the certificate of completion for the residential, meaning that if we do not finish the DEP improvements before then, and the residential project gets approved in the next few months, as we hope it going down, we could continue on and apply for a building permit. We can't occupy, if a certificate of completion, the certificate of occupancy is attached. So whether the improvements are done or not, we're not putting any new residents in or anything else, but we would like to not be in a situation where we would be slowing down our project by a few months and being punished for something that has been beyond our control. So that's our request, that's number one that's before you. I don't know if you wanna take them one at a time, go through them all at once, it's up to you.
We should take them one at a time, they're
That's
two
fine.
separate
Yeah,
issues.
that's fine, that's our first request.
I have no problem with the first one.
So the,
Nick, do you-
you have staff, Sabrina and Bob have looked at this, and we prepared a resolutions number 16 in your packet. They concur with the request to extend the date to August 31st, 2019. Both Bob and
2020.
2020, thank you, 2020. And Bob and Sabrina, however, both said that the limitation should be tied to the building permit and not issuance of the CO. And that should remain that
That's
way.
interesting. So they can't start construction until the road
For a
improvements
year.
are done.
Right, and if for some reason they get into a bind and they find that they're ready to work and they don't have the building permits for, they're ready to start the building permits on the East Village, they can come back to this board and ask for a relief from that condition.
Fair enough.
Why?
I think they wanna make sure that the building permits are the first thing that needs to be issued, they wanna make sure that the incentive remains there to do this work once the permits are issued.
But the intersection
DOT.
upgrades don't need to be done in order for the construction vehicles to be able to go and start doing the work there.
No, what I think they're thinking is that it was required.
They just want this as leverage because they think that
But if they,
that what they're not gonna do it.
That's an
One other
and
point,
if they
can I make
come
one other
back
point?
and ask us to give them relief, doesn't that negate the incentive then?
Well, but they can always come back and ask you.
Right, we don't have to grant.
Right, you don't have to grant it.
Can I also just point out, again, these intersection improvements, while they're terrific and they're not even tied to the approval, they have nothing to do with the residential approval. This was something, in all, with respectfully, this was imposed on us and frankly extorted from us by the state.
Then nothing, well, I respect that, no one ever.
And to make us potentially have to slow down our project because we agreed to come up with $600,000 for the improvements, and you have the security of a bond if we're not, you talk about incentive, if we don't go forward with it, you have our money sitting up there. I would respectfully suggest that's an unreasonable requirement, I haven't had a chance to talk, I found out about this tonight, that was Sabrina's position.
Is the logic just to have the incentive for them to move forward and not drag their heels? Is there some sense
I
that
haven't had a
there,
chance to speak with Sabrina.
Frankly,
is there some sense that they have not, even though the legal language is very, assured us and beautiful that of course they've made every diligent effort to do everything they can, is there some concern that maybe they were a little late in applying or that the
I have
effort
no
wasn't
reason
put
to
there?
believe that. The request came in on Friday, Sabrina's been on vacation, email exchanges with Sabrina, I'm not able to speak with her live,
Oh,
being
okay.
limited, so I can't go into what her rationale is.
but isn't the incentive really, I mean, if it's tied to, I'm sorry, it sounds horrible. If it's tied to the CO, they can't have anybody move in.
Thank you.
I guess potentially you could sell, but you know, everything would be, if I were gonna buy, it would be contingent upon obtaining a
You don't
CO,
have your money.
and I would get my, sue you if it
But I
didn't
guess to
come
play,
in,
but to
so
play
isn't
devil's
that kind of the
advocate on
incentive?
that, the intersection improvements don't only benefit the people who are moving into the, well, it's the, I mean, it's the town as a whole, I mean, people pass through that intersection all the time. So I think there is an issue insofar as we wanna get this done to benefit the
I think they wanna get it
town.
done.
We wanna get it done too,
But-
and to echo what Jeremy had said a few times before, that, you know, our friends at Summit Development, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You have $600,000 of our money, we would just like it tied to what we want to tie.
And let me add this, when New York State, and I was at those meetings, when New York State I mean, they weren't even gonna give you the building permit to do the work on 117 until you did this. So we'd all be sitting here right now with no retail, Chapco Crossing, 117 the same way it's been there for 20 years, instead of DOT. They weren't gonna even let them get their building permit, okay? So luckily, they were reasonable and allowed you to bifurcate it and deal with this. But the truth is, at that time, if you recall, that's when preemption started at the railroad tracks, and there were traffic problems down there, and everybody was freaking out about the traffic at the railroad. The fact is that once they adjusted the traffic light, it's been fine. Whole Foods is open, Lifetime's opening, a bunch of retail's opening, and it's been fine down the railroad. What we should really be worried about is the traffic. But it's fine right now. It's actually fine at 117 too, and that's before even the turning lanes are fully operational. So the fact is, it's fine, and it's not like there's a dire need for these improvements. I think tying it to the residential makes sense, because the fact is, that's when there's gonna be more people using it.
Year round is unlikely to get a CO for residential by August 31st, 2019, if they get 2020, I'll get it
No,
right.
there's a
There's
chance
no
we
way
can
to get
get
a
a building
CO.
permit by then, but there's no chance that we
But I don't
have it.
understand, why does it make a difference to you? If you're in a
Well,
hurry
by
to
the
get
way,
it done
tell
too,
you-
why
tell
do
you
you
right
wanna
now,
extend it out years?
Because it's an enormous thing for us, because frankly, who you're punishing is Felix, not Toll Brothers, because
How are we
Felix,
punishing him?
because Felix wants to close with Toll Brothers. And so the approvals of when we will be, approvals and building permit is when we will be closing, when Toll Brothers can go get their building permit, that's when they're gonna close with us and purchase the property from Chappaqua Crossing. So if you don't do that, you say he's the one who's getting hurt by if you would delay the building permit by a few months, you delay his being able to close his deal
But
with
do you foresee
Toll
being
Brothers.
able to apply for those building permits prior to August 31st, 2020 anyway?
Well, yeah, we'd like to believe
For
we're
building
gonna
permits,
get, we're gonna get our,
Yeah.
hopefully our planning board approval by the end of the year, so we should be able to apply for building permits next spring, we're hoping.
My
You have to come
thought,
back
Yeah,
to
I just
town,
forgot to-
how many,
What's
my
that?
thought,
don't you have to come back to the town board?
And that would all occur
Very
next.
what you're
Oh, sure we do,
asking for.
we
Yeah.
have lots of reasons, we're gonna be in front of you for a bunch
You
of
know,
stuff.
I have to say, I'm very, I find this all reasonable, but I'm very reluctant to go against, you know,
that's-
Sabrina's
right.
recommendation, cause she's much closer to the issue than I am.
And they made their application before the August 31st date, so they wouldn't be in default, so if you wanted to hold this over and vote for it at your subsequent meeting, there's
my-
no harm.
So
my
I'd like to- I'd like to
my
say
thought was,
Sabrina's
I'm
perspective.
inclined, from what
Me
you're
too.
sharing with me, to support your application.
Me too.
Me too.
But to Ivy's point, and to Nick's point, I think if we can just hear from her directly, punch it over, and if it's a reasonable problem or issue, then we'll address it. If ultimately she thinks it's okay and we can hash it out, then so be it.
I'd like to talk to her too, I haven't had a chance.
That's
She's
fine.
very reasonable.
So it
Yeah,
seems to
no,
be
she
a
is very
reasonable
reasonable,
request, but I
that's why I
think we
wanted
should.
to
No issue with her, maybe she's sending you something I'm not.
Just so I can make, we can make sure we've done our due diligence.
No problem, but as long as we don't have the August 31st problem, and we're
That's
moving on, 'cause
reasonable.
we've made our application, we're
That's
fine, we
reasonable.
can wait
Right,
until the
okay.
next meeting,
That's
and
fair.
that's fine.
Okay.
And once the work is granted, once you get the permit from DOT,
It's be September, after
how long would it take to do the work?
Right.
What's your construction schedule?
Jill?
That's probably a
We don't have a
2 or 3
before
months,
August 31st.
you know, from start to finish.
Well, we may
So
have,
that's 27th.
we may have one for
Oh, yeah.
payment claims.
Okay, but that's fine. The work itself?
The work itself.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think 2 or 3 months. There's a lot of coordination now in that.
Yeah, I believe that so.
Right, so this would next appear in the September meeting, but the key point is that they got their application in before the time expires, so their time of the delay is on our end.
Fine.
And there wouldn't be a
Okay, good.
default.
Okay.
Alright,
By the
we're just
way,
trying to
we're
make
good
sure
with
that
that.
there's no.
Okay, it also might be nice to have a little gap in construction down there, you know, like just without going from 117 to the railroad, just have a little construction free period.
That's fine. The second request we made dates back to a March 15, 2019 letter, which comes out of meetings with both the town board and the planning board, which centers upon the question of the auditorium parcel. As you're well aware, we had worked for many months on working.
So we're gonna discuss that we're gonna discuss that
talking
letter
about that one today.
on the September 10th meeting that we're having.
That's fine.
So we'd ask that we defer discussion on that.
Okay, do you have to vote on that?
No. No, 'cause it wasn't on the agenda for that.
That's fine. So again, second request dates back to March 15th of this year, which followed a series of meetings with the planning board and the town board, where we were looking to put together the boundary lines for the auditorium parcel, and there were a number of things.
That's what we're not talking about.
That's what we're not talking about.
Oh, this one
Until-
we're not
Yeah,
talking
well,
about, I
yeah,
apologize, I thought it was the first one.
No. Yep. So we don't, so
I'm okay with that.
And
And the other two
Sure.
things we were asked to talk about, which weren't part of the letters, but you can stop me again. We have a resolution that we've seen that was on the board. There were two issues that were conditions, original conditions. I apologize, I didn't catch that. The first was the walkway on the east side of Route 117, Annandale Walkway they talked about. We all went to a meeting with the neighbors, we walked it, we looked at it. It was rather intrusive, particularly on one particular property with their fence line and their property line, et cetera. And we can't do this without their permission. They've said, we're not giving permission, we're asking to be relieved of the condition.
Okay, but no, what I wanna understand about that, cause while that's true in terms of a big, wide paved path, I didn't think that was true. I still think there are things that can be done there to potentially make it a different type of path. And we haven't fully heard from like Bob Cioli as to what any DOT requirements would be or what we could do, which I need to understand before I can give you relief from that, because I think potentially you could do a pervious path or
That wasn't the issue, it was.
There's a pinch point
similar
of
to,
one property.
I know, but I live right there, so I see it every day and my children walk it every day, so I know there's room to potentially put something similar to, you know, the walkway you put along the Roaring Road side
Again.
on your property, so I need to understand it, because we haven't heard any of the
You can walk it, so
information.
as I understand it, we were there, we went through it. What looks to you like room, there are parts where there's nothing but right of way, essentially, that go over. So what you're looking at, what you think of, oh, there's room, you would have to run it through the New York State DOT right of way, and then there will question, and with, you couldn't do it without having the private property rights.
Right.
That's how it was
Which they
shown to
withdrew.
us.
You can't put
Well,
pervious surface
they
on the
withdrew
DOT
it
right away.
because
Correct.
the Roses, I think, who were the ones who proposed it in the first place and offered up their land in the first place, the way it was drawn was gonna be too much of an infringement on their property. There may be a way to do it where it's not as much infringement, and I don't think we were part of those discussions, and I wanna understand
So
from Bob.
Bob did,
But I haven't heard from Bob.
No, fair enough, but Bob looked at it and the problem was, if you put it out of the, further away from the residents, because the residents were concerned about losing
Sure.
some screening, you then were into the DOT right of way, which required a pervious surface, which then triggered DEP approvals, which they wouldn't grant because then it affects your total pervious surface coverage, which they considered that to be part of the overall development. And it came to DEP permitting issues and seeking variances, which they previously wouldn't grant for the roundabout, so it was a dead end from their perspective.
We're happy if you wanna talk to Bob Cioli, he was there, he heard what we heard, we all
There was
came to the
tons
same
of-
I just want the
conclusion.
same
It was
way we're
tons of
talking to
trees.
Sabrina on the other issue, I just wanna hear from Bob and be able to ask
We
him
don't
a
have an
question
objection,
before I
we just wanna,
You
we
did.
just wanna make
You
sure
could
we
also
can
talk to
clean this up when
You
you.
could also
Yes.
talk to the Roses and to the,
I know, I did.
I mean, they were not, they were just like, why are we doing this? They actually thought that we were requiring them to do it. And then we were like, no, this is something that we thought you
We're the
guys
ones who
would help.
proposed it in the first place.
No, it was proposed, we all threw it out there,
No, I
and
think so.
They totally
No, I
came
think-
and proposed
that,
it.
no, that,
He got up
it's,
there,
it's,
Scott got
it's been
up there
it
and
was-
said, I'm happy to give some of my
Right, it
property.
was proposed before that, and Scott did actually say that, until they actually saw what property, and it wasn't just a property, it was the amount of trees that had to come down to use that
There's a
property.
whole bunch of things.
They were not happy about it at all on site.
So the bottom line is I have no problem with what Ivy's suggesting.
So
Lisa?
Yes, I
And
apologize.
then the second condition to be waived was about Beeline Bus. While they're here, any questions on the efforts they made, or is that part of the resolution
as I
acceptable?
told you in previous meetings, I have direct conversations with the county executive and the
Right.
deputy county executive.
Thank you.
I can just tell you they're not, and it's not the first time.
It's not shocking nor
It-
surprising.
Well, it's also, it costs money to do those things, I know it sounds weird, but it does, and we've tried in other places and without, they're just not gonna do it.
You've tried.
And just remind me, is it because their schedules are set already, or because it's gonna be?
It's extra time,
Yeah, the
it's
extra
all of
time.
these various things that they take into account, said we can't change our routes.
So I can back this up, I also reached out to the county about this issue because I didn't believe you.
Cause
I like your honesty. You gotta credit her honesty.
Well, I think what you meant was trust but verify.
Trust me.
What do they like to say? I could have stayed home if I wanted to hear that.
But they also said they couldn't find a place where they thought it would make sense to have
It's
this
so
stuff.
Actually, it's never heard of one.
It's really disappointing.
Well-
Indeed, and I shared that and they said that in the future, when they look at the sort of master plan and the routes for the Beeline Bus, they might be willing to reconsider
2038.
at this point.
Yeah.
Right, but at this
Basically.
point, you did what you had to do, you tried and it didn't work.
So can you give us an update on Warrenbrook Road and Route 117, where we are in construction, where
So-
when can we expect this to be?
2 months ago.
Um,
You know, and looking at the
I feel
downtown
your
area,
pain,
I know
trust
you,
me.
I know you do. But, so
I
2
ask
weeks
it as
ago,
kindly as I can.
2 weeks ago, we had gotten the final approval from both Con Edison and DOT for the revised gas line, issue that we had.
Yes.
So that issue has been resolved, so in doing so, we had to release the precast structures for the drainage.
Okay.
So they were released immediately after that. The structure that we're waiting on is gonna be delivered at the end of this week.
Okay.
It'll be installed next week. We're planning on doing final paving the week of August 26th.
Wow.
26, okay, because it's
So-
just so.
Right before
It's
school.
very close.
Yeah,
And all the
you
sports
know.
teams are back practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at least we don't
Whatever,
have
it's
to
gotta get done.
Look, the final paving
Yeah.
is not that big of a deal, to be honest with you. You know, the hard work is essentially been done in terms of the turning and leveling and raising of the road. So that binder is already down. The final paving will only take about 2.5 to 3 days.
Okay, and can we expect the part of Warrenbrook Road that abuts 117, that last part that hasn't been paved, to be
Yes,
done as well?
that's all gonna be.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jill, that's all part of it.
Okay,
Yep.
good, alright, terrific.
Yep.
And just switching gears a little bit, Whipple Road, that cutting back
Yeah.
of the brush along that curve there.
More than the
I have
brush,
said
there's
this
some
100
trees
times, that
taken-
give me the direction, tell me what you want to do, and we will do it.
Well, tell me
no
who
one
you
has-
need that from.
I need it
because-
from somebody in the town. Somebody needs to mark out what they want done, somebody needs to show our people what they want done, and we will cut it back.
Okay.
I am not going to go on property without direction from the town on what you want done. So I need that.
Okay,
Is
we'll
that
take care of
town-owned
it.
property there or school?
Right away. So it's right, might be right away. It's right away.
Some of, I think it's
I
both,
think
some
it's
of it's,
school
I think it's
property.
school,
I think it's school property.
it
Yeah.
might be a little bit of a right
Oh,
of
with the
way.
No,
school
school
should be a
property.
problem.
Okay.
Across the way.
School shouldn't be a problem, did you say?
Yes,
Yeah,
no,
I-
not a problem.
They cut it back very
No.
well.
Not even a little bit. Meeting with them, not a problem. Okay, I will get all that good stuff.
Yeah, we just need that direction, where we can get it done very quickly, I need that direction.
Okay, and the week of the 26th, do you know what day on that week that you're doing the paving?
Well, we're gonna start on Monday the 26th.
Monday.
That's the plan right now.
But I mean, you're waiting for the structure though.
The structure comes in this week,
Is
gets
that definite?
installed next week, and then the week after we pay.
It's definitely when it gets here.
It's definitely coming
I
this
said
week.
it's definite when it gets here.
Yeah, no.
It's definitely coming this week?
I don't think they have.
Is it in transit?
It's in transit right now, I don't have a bill of lading yet, but as soon as I do, I'll let you know, but yes.
Sorry,
I
do you
think,
have permission to work on the weekends? You don't?
no, we do not, so the
Okay, then
DOT
it's
has kind
9
of
to
slapped
like
us a little
3,
bit.
yeah, I understand. 9 to 4, is that what you're,
8 to 4, 8:30 to 4, I think it's 8:30 to 4.
8:30?
Yeah.
But you can mobilize
Push it
at
a little
8:30,
bit.
you can't start
Right.
working or something.
And then as a reminder, the applicant is coming back to the board for joint planning board, town board meeting on
the
September
10th.
24th. Well, the 10th is when we're just having our
Oh, I
own
see,
internal
you're right.
work
I'm
session
sorry,
where
I
we've not
apologize,
invited
you're
the
right.
applicant to attend. We're gonna have Bob Kirkwood and Les Simon come and meet with us and just give us an overview of what the planning board has worked on with the applicant. Then on September 24th, we're having a joint meeting with the planning board and the town board, and the applicant will be there, and we're gonna talk through the PDCP changes, the subdivision changes, and then kick that off, because that's gonna be the fall activity.
Have we ever resolved the issue about extra, I don't wanna call them bedrooms, but I can't remember what the.
That's the planning board, that's what they're discussed on the 10th and on the 24th.
Basement. Okay, bringing everybody up to
And
speed.
by the way, while we're at it, you're welcome for the sales tax increase. We figured
Yeah,
we'd
that was-
mention
I noted
too.
that.
We'd like to at least take some credit for that. We assume that that's there.
Is that it? Yeah, that's it. All right, have a great night.
Before you guys go, we've had some questions from residents recently, this is a minor issue, but just regarding the kind of the landscaping there along Roaring Brook Road and 117. Both the plantings, which I know you guys are looking to replace if needed.
So right now, there's
and they're
3
not
dead trees on
thriving.
Roaring Brook Road, there's 40
Yeah.
that have not been planted as part of the DOT restoration. Can't do that planting until that DOT work is done. So
Okay.
there's only 3 dead trees on Roaring Brook Road. In terms of maintaining the islands, they'll be out there this week mowing.
Right,
Right.
fabulous, thank you.
Thank you.
You knew exactly what she was talking about.
Yeah.
Should Rob give you a heads up on that anyway.
I emailed
I said to Rob, give you a heads up on
Yeah, no,
that.
But I would have said something very similar to that even without the email, because we're aware of it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, the median on Roy Brook Road comes up every 3 or 4 weeks when it needs to be mowed.
Rightfully so. So
All right,
all
well,
these
I'll ask one
resolutions,
more
this
question.
will all come up at the 10th. All the things that we requested.
Yeah, we'll probably.
Fourth, fifth.
And how about, Felix had
Number
said
4.
you guys were taking down that berm that's in front of,
That's something different.
like,
In front of the auditorium?
yeah, in front of the
We're
auditorium.
not taking down any berm yet.
No, that was not part of anything about the subdivision, that was not supposed to be there.
That is not true. That berm is shown on the site plan.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be as high as it is, and Felix guaranteed that that was coming down, so I was
I will,
curious.
I will speak with him about that. I think it's exactly the way it's supposed to be, but we'll certainly
But
let
isn't
him.
the road
think it
coming up?
is.
Isn't the road coming up, this
And
loop
that's
road?
part of
Isn't that
the
what the-
planning board approval, that, I don't know if that's been 100% agreed to yet in terms of raising that loop road.
But it wouldn't
That's a
be
big issue for us.
Right, they haven't voted it yet, but they have told us that's what they want.
But isn't it,
I
that's not
wouldn't
the
be
loop road?
there.
Oh,
That's,
It is the
it's
loop
part
road.
of the loop road.
Yes, it is.
And we'll discuss
But
that on
it's
the
further
10th.
down where it's gonna be raised, not right in front.
So that'll be discussed on the 10th and the 24th.
That's where that road will be raised in that area, so.
You'll clear up my confusion on the
Yeah,
dates?
so what we're, to recap, the 2 resolutions that were before the town board with respect to modifying the conditions and the request on the August 31st, 2020 date
Right.
will be discussed on your September 4th, Wednesday before, meeting date. And on September 10th, it's just
Yeah,
a
Wednesday.
closed workshop discussion open to the public, but we're not asking the applicant to be there. And on the 24th is when the applicant will be there and we'll have a meeting with the
So I'm
planning
sorry,
board.
the 10th is a work session where you can discuss the 24th.
Yes. So the reason behind that is that the planning board is up to speed and has spent 6, 9, 10 months with you.
So they're gonna-
You haven't been with us before, so the planning board chairman and the planning board attorney are going to bring the town board up to speed on what those discussions have been, and there's no need to have you there because you're gonna be there on the 24th.
It's a pre-meeting for us to get up
Is
there.
it a public meeting?
Yeah, absolutely, you can sit and listen and be quiet.
Like tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it
a
would just
pre-meeting.
be
It's sort of like
basically so we
Chappaqua Crossing in
understand
a
what we're
nutshell.
talking about
Yeah.
on
You know?
the 24th.
The abridged version.
Reader's Digest.
It just, it's to give us a little heads up.
Like they wrote to
like
them for
it.
reference.
Yeah, no,
That's
exactly.
Okay, great, thank you. All
Thank you.
Thanks.
right, Dave, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night,
Dave.
everyone.
Take care.
Basically, my
Okey dokey. Food truck?
By the way, Austin's having a food truck and concert series down in Lisbon, it's wildly popular.
Great, yeah.
Austin.
I can get this one, it's not a problem.
Excellent.
That's the one we'll move it over.
Can get time.
Have you guys had a chance to take a look at the food truck stuff?
Why don't you tell us about it?
Oh, can we, I'm sorry.
No, 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 no,
Really,
no, no,
I'm
no.
truly failing to.
It's fine,
I would say
okay,
this is
so
urgent.
let's table this for
prioritize
the
anything
next
that's-
discussion, okay. So the next is surplus equipment from the police, you guys good with that?
Fabulous.
We are recommending some repair services to the horizontal grinder.
Yeah, 'cause we did some
Alright,
mulch.
perfect. Mount Pleasant Plumbing and Heating. So we have a bit of a change order. Mount Pleasant Plumbing and Heating is the entity that we hired to do the gas connection at the community center.
Right.
Because RJ required additional insurance, it's like a $750-800 increase to which of course we get passed along, so we're asking for permission to pay for the differential. If we want the insurance with it. Okay. Authorization to create, bid and create a capital fund for the Millwood Water Treatment Plant boilers. Okay. Any questions, problem? Large message board, so the DPW would like to accept a proposal for the large message board. The digital boards the police have been using have been tremendously helpful, especially when we have to close roads to do paving and stuff like that. In case of an emergency, it's really great for DPW to be able to tell people about,
There's one on my
detours and
road
stuff like
right
that.
now, it's quite helpful.
Yeah, it's tremendously helpful, and as we put more and more of them out, people sort of expect to see them, and it's safer for everybody involved. The police are requesting to attend conferences. ELQ change order, this is the change order that we spoke about, it's for the granite curbing, we finally have a number, it was approved by the board like a year ago, 2 years ago. So Mavis, this is the maintenance bond for the stormwater and the tree plantings for the improvements on their property. Does the board have any questions about that? This is something that Jen Gray usually.
So they're asking us to release,
No, to establish.
to establish, what are they planning on doing? I didn't know that.
So this is all approved by the planning
Planning
board, and
board.
the conditions were, and then the town board, because of their bonds, the town board
Wow,
has
what are
to
they
accept
doing?
those.
Just upgrading their landscaping, or are they actually making fundamental changes to Millwood?
I also am not familiar with what the site plan approvals are that they received from the planning board.
But this is maintenance, so they've already done the work, so this is to maintain it for a
Yes.
period, usually of 2 years from the time of establishing it. And this same sort of thing is gonna be established for the downtown project as well,
Yep.
full amount, so after it gets done, they don't walk away. Okay, community center roof repairs, so during
Oh,
the
I know, they
last
had to do something with the
downpour,
septic system.
no, the roof repairs at the community center.
No, I'm thinking about Mavis.
Oh, that
It was
could be-
almost 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, that could be. So community center during the last downpour, the really heavy one where Squires had the flooding problem, we got some horrific damage at the community center. That flat roof gave. So we have brought in a company that's just gonna put a tar layer on it just to take care of just some, minimal repairs, but it needs some real evaluation as to how we go forward with it. Also some of the remarkably portions of the slate roof that are only from the 1960s because of acid rain or stuff have disintegrated, which is just shocking. I mean, I have a barn that has a 200-year-old slate roof to it and it's in perfect condition, but
Maybe the quality of the slate that was used.
maybe, I don't
Type
know,
of slate.
I'm shocked, but you hear about slate roofs and usually, once they're there, you're good to go, but we're
Question
having
about this,
problems.
question about this
We gotta
time,
get outta here.
Joe?
Yeah, sorry, so anyway, so we've got a
Jill,
company,
just
yes.
really super question. When do you expect to fix it in totality, and should it be fine to last the winter? Should we not be able to, and thawing of snow?
Yeah, so this is a company that's gonna come in and basically give us an evaluation,
We're
so
gonna
the-
assess it.
Yeah, so this is for $775.
Right, which is
This is
not-
just the preliminary thing.
They're
The
gonna fix
Watsy
some things.
Associates, which is right next to it, is the company that's gonna come in and all they do is they do they will do an evaluation, they'll do an engineering thing, they'll prepare an RFP so
Gotcha,
we can
gotcha.
figure out what our next steps are with the roof.
Guessing it
We're
involves
gonna have to
some
do
money.
some work inside as well, but that we're doing in-house. Okay.
All those?
Bobos, they'd like to put up a banner much like.
We approved that banner?
We approved a very similar banner to
That big
David
right
Chase's.
there?
That was the exact banner they had up there.
Really?
Didn't
That
approve
coffee
that
banner?
banner, and then we were mad at them for hanging up the banner, cause we hadn't approved it.
Right, and then they
Alright.
put up another banner
we
that
approved that.
I don't
said,
think we approved that banner either, I think we had a whole
That's-
conversation about how we
That's
didn't
hideous.
want
That's
them to put up
hideous.
the banner and made them take it down.
No, that's the first one, that's not the banner they
That's
want.
not the banner, that's the
That was the banner
location.
from,
That's the
that's a
capital
picture
office.
of the banner
I remember
that
that.
Chapua Station had up. Chappaqua Station, we approved the banner for them to do.
That looks absolutely photoshopped to me.
We didn't,
No,
I
that's a
don't,
real picture of what Chappaqua Station, they made a banner, it looked like this.
That's exact picture
And
that
then we
came
didn't
off
like
their
it, and we.
We made them take it down, right. So, no,
Of course, you might also thought those two parking spots.
there was a banner we approved, it wasn't that banner, the banner we approved was for when they wanted to do their,
lunch,
let's
dinner.
compete with the farmer's market. And they were gonna use the outside Sportico space to have their own little farmer's market, and then we basically told them they can't do that, so they took down their banner.
It does not look like a real picture, it's absolutely.
No, it's
It is a real
it's
picture
picture,
from
but anyway,
Facebook.
look,
So you go on their-
regardless,
you
what
go
is
on
the
their
banner that
Facebook page.
Bobo's wants, they want the size, this is.
What do they
They want a banner that basically says Bobo's either under new management or now open, or basically something that's, so people know that it's a new,
And
it's a
it's
new ownership.
temporary?
Yeah, they wouldn't have it always up there, it's something basically just to basically say under new management, air
Hallelujah.
conditioning.
Why don't they
Hey,
give
we
us
have air
visual
conditioning now,
representation of
you
what
can
they're
come in
thinking?
when it's 90 degrees out. Like any new business, right? We're a business friendly town, right? Any new business, doesn't a new business want somebody that says, hey,
Yeah, I think.
grand opening, something like that?
I thought we decided they weren't allowed to hang it up because it was a historic train station.
It's on the beam, just
I
like
don't
we
mind if
approved it
it's
for
for
the
like a
Chappaqua
week
Station.
or so.
Well, can we do it for 30
Like to
days,
say, like grand opening
when
or
people come
something
back
like
into
that.
town?
I don't understand why we did it for the Chase and we wouldn't do it for them, that's the part that doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, we did do it for
We
them.
did do it for the Chase, we absolutely did. It wasn't that coffee
you,
one, it was
do you
the one when
remember
they
the
were
banner for
trying to
the
compete with the
Chases?
farmer's market.
No,
But we
I thought there was
never
one
let
just
them do it with the
recently, it was
farmers
gonna be a
market.
different,
We didn't
there were
allow them
four,
to keep
there
it.
were
No,
four
they got the
different
banner for
colors.
it, they got a banner for it.
Yeah, but there were four different color combinations that they did, it said breakfast, lunch, dinner,
Okay.
serving,
And so
I
we
have no
approved this, so we
recollection.
wanna approve one for Bobo's.
yeah, I mean,
But
we could do it for a
let's just-
30-day
can
thing
they-
that just says,
I don't mind if it's a 30 days, like grand
let them
opening,
come
new
back
restaurant type
and-
thing,
and
cause it's
I'll
hard to
circulate.
tell from the
Let them
street what, if that's
What's
new
what's
or
the
I
down,
don't care
what's
what
the,
that.
what's the
came from
downside
Facebook,
anyway, but
it's
I
obviously
understand, what's the
Photoshopped.
what's the downside? Yeah, I agree we should do it, they're not, that was a Chase's banner, if it was ugly, then speak to them.
I don't remember.
They just want a
I can
banner
tell
that
you,
says,
it's
under new
Facebook, it's
man.
photoshopped.
Okay,
Okay, that was the exact banner, let's
Can
not
we
waste
just-
time with that
Can we just
nonsense.
ask that, can we approve it?
well,
Do we wanna approve it? Do
well,
we-
can we approve it for 30 days? We'll
Yes.
have it subject to my approval, board
No,
wanna do
I
anything,
think that
whatever.
we need to, I think really, I
need to
get the grand
micromanage the
opening,
business. We need
new
to micromanage
ownership,
the
whatever it
business.
has to be, but I think it should be for 30 days, for them to have any kind of license to continue to do that
They
under,
they don't,
Do you understand that that's not their banner? That's not the
Oh,
banner they're
snowy picture.
proposing.
No, but they're proposing that size.
They're proposing that size.
it's, no, he just wants to,
Stop, you two.
No, because we approved that banner for them, so they're using that as an example of that they want a similar size banner.
we never approved that banner.
Yes, we did.
okay, doesn't matter, 30 days,
In 30 days,
totally
and then
good with
no
that.
other
30
banner
days, grand
unless it's been
opening.
come back to us.
yeah, and then they can come
Makes
back to us.
They can come back to us in the
But I don't think
future.
they should permanently hang a banner there because it's a historic.
They don't want to permanently hang the banner.
I would suggest we say 30 days, you might want to tie it to a date that
30 days from
coincides
opening
after
or-
your meeting, or so that there's not a gap in.
That's a great idea.
Well, what about 30 days from when they open?
Just
they
30
open-
days to start whenever they want it to start. They have to work on rebranding the whole place
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, they do,
They're, I
believe
think
it.
they're
Right.
running it as Chappaqua Station.
When is our next meeting? When
No,
is our
they
next
have,
meeting?
they're running it as Bobo.
Oh, they
When's
are?
the
We will give, yeah, it's a
They're
30
gonna-
day.
Have they changed over like the mugs and stuff like that?
Tenth,
Like
fourth
they're-
to tenth.
Well, they have Bobos on the
Wednesday.
side.
Wednesday,
but
they
no,
do.
no,
the third is
they
a,
hate the Bobos.
elementary school, so we've kind of,
So
you
then,
guys are break.
going forward after that, what do we have? Was it
10,
Tuesday?
17, 24.
You wanna say,
Just let them do it from the date that they wanna start running the banner, they have to give you written notice and they have permission to put it up for 30 days. And that's it.
That's great.
September
That's
30th.
good. It's good for everybody.
I mean, they don't wanna do it now anyway, nobody's here now, they wanna do it
Right.
when everybody's back and they want people to know
Fine,
that it's a
30
new
days from the
place,
time they
under
erect
new
it.
management, and come in and give us
They
a
have to
shot.
give you written
Because
notice.
the fact is, if people didn't like the old place, you want them to know that it's a new place in there,
yes,
right?
completely agree.
And people who even did like the old place can like the new place.
Absolutely
Of
positive.
course, but anytime a place changes ownership, you always have
Yeah.
signs under new
Well, and
management.
there was a lot of publicity that it was closing, so people may not know that something
Right.
new is
I mean,
coming
it's not a-
in, you want.
It's not a knock
signs.
against it, it could be the best new place, you
The
want people
next
to know
thing is
there's
the
new
Ingham
owners, give it
Pump
a shot.
Station, so this is what Bill Richardson was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask the board to approve the 126, 378, which is what Jerry wanted, and I'll discuss it with him tomorrow.
Can we lean on him to do what this guy's asking for? Cause it
Yeah,
does
but
really
look,
sound
if
like
there's
it's
a reason why he doesn't want it and he would rather have it rebuilt, I don't know what condition it's in, maybe it's in terrible condition and I don't know.
I don't know,
I would
you
like to
find
have
out,
the conversation.
yeah, have that conversation.
I'm gonna do whatever Jerry
I mean, I don't know if we can we have time to have that conversation because it seems like anything we need to order, like,
It's coming up.
time is of the essence.
Yeah.
Right, and
No,
I
and I
actually
said
feel,
that.
I would actually
Conversation.
even say to him that I think that the recommendation, I agree with the recommendation to have redundancy in a pump at a water treatment stand in 7 weeks
I have
is
no,
kind of
I
at
have no issue
minimum.
with that. My only point is if Jerry has had a conversation with Sulzer and Sulzer says to him that we can do the replacement work in 7 weeks, I would like him to have the authorization, cause you guys are not back until
Yeah, we don't have enough
September
time.
30th.
So you're authorizing the highest
Right.
amount and directing the administrator to work
But I
with-
think within the resolution, we should
I'll tell Jerry.
recommend.
He needs to have it done by the time, it needs to be fixed and in place
By
by
October
October 6th.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
that's just that is the bottom line, he's aware of it.
Yeah, okay,
Whatever Jerry wants is okay with me.
I mean, listen,
okay.
and the Chapel Crossing thinks, oh, Gray Rock Road,
Yes.
Gray Rock Park Road.
So on page 87 of your packet is a report from the building
It's just
inspector
formal
regarding an
session.
unsafe building at 9 Gray Rock Park Road. It's been abandoned for a number of years. The town wants to give notice to the property owner to remove the unsafe building. If after a period of time they don't do so, the law then authorizes the town to do so at the town's expense, and those costs are then charged back to the property owner on their tax bill. The town board's required to, and you have reviewed the report, and then adopt a resolution authorizing it to do so. It's just procedural steps.
Yep.
And then we'll give notice to the property owner, hopefully they'll cure it. If not, we're authorized then to go in and do it.
Okay.
Okay. Okey-dokies.
You
Where
going?
is our, I don't see our,
You feel better?
We're next door.